Hey, what's up? What's up? It's your girl Neek, and you're tuned in to Neek at Night. And tonight we're going to go over all of the latest updates as Diddy anticipates being sentenced in his trial that he was convicted of the Mann Act. Now, it's a lot of evidence that has come out during the trial. And even the stuff that he wasn't convicted of, the judge still held some of the allegations against him. Now, he wasn't charged of, RICO. He wasn't charged of, domestic violence or anything like that, but he admitted to being violent. So the judge said, you're going to sit in jail until we sentence you. Now, as he approaches sentencing for the Mann Act, the two Mann Act charges, there has been a ton of support letters sent in to the judge to try to vouch for his character. There has been a lot of family, friends, music executives, all of those things sending in support letters as well. And he also even has this free game course. So, as a way to buy time and I guess be a productive citizen, he decided to come up with a course where he also teaches the inmates a business class. So, we're going to go over all of the different updates, all of the different things that is being proposed. Now, the prosecution is looking to get him sentenced for about 7 years. The maximum sentence that the judge can sentence him to is 20 years. And his defense team is trying to get him a sentence of 14 months, which at the time of the hearing, I believe that would give him like time served for the amount of time that he's already been in, and so on and so forth. So there is a lot of different things going on. And so we're going to get into it. So ahead of his trial, he has, I guess, clothes that he anticipates to wear that had to get approved. So we'll go over that document right now, and then we will go over a few other things. And let me just do a quick screenshot so I don't pull up the whole document. All right, so this is one of the documents that was submitted on his behalf. And it basically says like what he's allowed to wear to court. There are so many different rules down to the nitty gritty. Now, on his hearing of acquittal, he wore a prison jumpsuit, but on the actual hearing for his sentencing, he's going to be wearing some specific clothing. So this is something that his defense filed and the judge accepted. It says, upon the application, Tenny Garagos, attorney for defendant Sean Combs, it is basically requesting that he will be permitted to receive non-prison clothing at the prison that he's at to be able to wear for his appearance on 2025 and his sentencing on October 3rd. Well, this didn't get approved by the September 25, the last hearing on September 25th. So it was approved after the fact, permitting him to have 2 button-down shirts, 2 pairs of pants, 2 sweaters, and 1 pair of shoes. Now, being that they only approved this after the September 25 date, I'm guessing that he's going to have one of each to go into sentencing. Now, with that being said, let me give you guys, before we get into these inmate letters, before we get into all of the different nuances, let me tell you guys what to expect at sentencing. So this is, what is this, like my 4th, 5th trial that I've covered in person. And the first one for me was Tory Lanez Meg Thee Stallion. I attended majority of the court dates. I attended Tory Lanez sentencing, and basically I believe the same shebang is going to happen at his sentencing. So whenever a person is sentenced and they are basically alleged to have victims in the case and they are alleged to have support in the case, both sides get to share their impact statements and or support letters. So if Cassie wants to air out how she feels like he deserves the max, or if she says, you know, he put me through things, I'm afraid of him, blah, 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 blah. They'll read letters from Cassie and other victims that were presented as victims in the trial. And those statements will be either read in person, they'll show up and tell how they feel in person, or sometimes they will have a submitted letter that is read out to the court in the behalf of the victim. Sometimes the victim is scared to like show up or whatever, so a lot of times they want to face their person, and sometimes they just want to send a letter. On the flip side of that, they have his support letters. So he has his family who has sent in support letters. He has his music record executive colleagues, and even a bunch of Kim Porter's best friends who have all vouched for him in these support letters. His mom, his kids, you know, family, basically anybody who benefits off his payroll sent in a support letter. So I don't think that they'll go through, it's like over 100 letters that were submitted. The court doesn't have time to go through all of them. So they'll kind of like pick, I guess, you know, a number that will be most important that they read out, and then he'll have those read out. Now, in addition to the support letters, the victim impact statements, and things like that, the prosecution will be able to speak on why they feel like he deserves the 7 years, and the defense will be able to speak on why they feel like he deserves the 14 months. And then if he has gone under any type of psych evals or talked to like any counselor, like they oftentimes have like these prisoners evaluated based on like, have they changed? Have they made improvements? Do you see them being a conductive citizen? Like what was the word? Is it conductive? I don't know. It's late. But anyways, you know, do you see them being a good citizen? Those people will also sometimes speak. Now, when I went to the Tory Lanez sentencing, they were trying to get him into a rehab. So they were basically saying like, oh, well, the things that happened, like we're not admitting that he shot Meg, but what did happen, maybe he has an alcohol problem. So let's get him help and let's get him into productive. There we go. Thank you. I know it sounded off. If he's a productive citizen. Thank you for, who is that? Makeup by Double D's in the chat. There you go. Thank you for looking out. That's the word I was looking for. But anyways, it's midnight right now. So just to give y'all a timeline on when this is being filmed. But anyways, so in Tory Lanez's case, they were basically saying, oh, well, you know, we're not admitting that he shot her, even though he's apologizing for the situation and he's insinuating that he shot her. We're not going to outright say he shot her, but we want to put him into a rehab, and we want to put him into this facility that is off. I think it was like some facility that was like this fancy facility that was going to make him a better man and things like that. And the person that was in charge of the facility, they spoke out. I believe Tory Lanez's baby mama spoke out. I think the Unite the People spoke out. The person that was the judge, I mean, not the judge, the, what do they call the preacher or the priest that's in the jail? The whatever the label is, the person that preaches, that goes to the jails and they preach, that person spoke out on his behalf. So in Diddy's case, I'm anticipating it to be similar. So after the judge narrows down, everybody's not going to be able to speak in Diddy's case because he has way more people that are speaking on his behalf. Once they narrow down like who's speaking, whose plea is going to be most impactful or whatever, the chaplain, there you go, thank you. The chaplain spoke for Tory. Whoever they think is going to be most impactful, my guess is he's going to put them kids up there, okay? He's going to put not all of the kids. This is just a guess. I guess, I'm guessing. I think that if I was him, you put up the kids who don't got a mama, okay? And the ones that don't got a mama is the twins, the one that looked like him, I think his name is Christian, and Quincy. You put those kids up there because, oh my God, please judge, don't lock my dad up. This is our only parent. Our mother is deceased. Da, 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 da. You know, put that whole show on. Show that he needs his kids, and then you put on a psychologist that basically is gonna vouch, or and stuff like, they're gonna pick like who they think is going to be the most impactful for the judge to like feel sorry for the individual or whatever. His mom, I don't think his mom would be that impactful, in my opinion. I think that, she submitted a support letter, which is great. The judge will skim through it. But I don't think that his mom's plea to the court would be that impactful. I think it would be more impactful from the specific children that don't have a parent to speak. I think that would be the most impactful, just my thinking, because everybody can't speak. So, and then like, there was allegations of him unaliving Kim Porter or things like that. He'll probably throw in one of the besties that one of Kim Porter's best friends like lives with Diddy and she takes care of the kids. One of those people might speak on behalf, like, oh, I was their kids, the best friend to their mom, and now she's gone, and I see the impact of, blah, blah, blah. I anticipate like one of those types of people to speak, and a couple more. So they'll have that happen, and then they'll have, like I said, the prosecution defense. The prosecution will say, judge, we think he's a despicable person. He was having these people and paying off these people to perform baby oil scenes and all this stuff and blah, blah. He deserves 7 years. And then his team is going to say, hey, judge, this is the case law, and this other case, this person only had this many years, da, da, da. So that's kind of what to expect. Now, moving on from like what to expect at sentencing, or let's go on to some of the curriculum that he has imposed to these inmates. So he has, like I said, as a part of showing that he's a changed man, this curriculum called Free Game with Diddy. So Free Game with Diddy is a curriculum where he helps give business advice to fellow inmates. Let me pull that up and go through some of this stuff right here, and then we'll go through some more. I also have the transcript from the last hearing on September 25th. If you guys want me to go by line and read the arguments that they presented and everything like that, if you guys don't know, the hearing that they just had on September 25th was basically them saying, listen, judge, they didn't find him guilty of RICO. They didn't find him guilty of like the most serious charges. He got found guilty of the Mann Act. We think that the two that he found guilty of, we think that he deserves an acquittal. And so basically they argued why they feel like these charges that he got charged with should be vacated. And if the judge does not want to vacate them, well, judge, we think that he should have another trial to where the prosecution actually proves their case and they didn't meet their burden and they didn't prove the case. These are kind of some of the arguments. They also allege that he didn't engage in lot lizards. Lot lizards, if you don't know what lot lizards mean, look it up. But it's the name for paying for, it's just a term derived from the truck stop. But anyways, so their argument was, listen, judge, this wasn't him engaging with lot lizards. This was him more so just being a movie producer. And he would film these scenes of him with these lot lizards that even though he paid them for their performance, he was paying them for a scene, and he was a movie producer, and he was doing amateur movies of these adults. That's kind of what their argument was. And they're like, listen, he shouldn't be charged with the Mann Act because he was just a movie producer, okay? And they got paid for you know, similar to the people in California, wherever they do the Simi Valley or North, wherever they do it these days. Similar to that. That was kind of their argument. And then they're like, well, in addition, there were similar cases where this person got this sentence, this person got this sentence, blah, 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 blah. Then the prosecution, they basically argued, Judge, they playing with our intelligence. Like, they doing mental gymnastics. They're playing with our intelligence. It is what it is. He was paying for lot lizards. This wasn't no movie production. This wasn't no amateur Showtime at the Apollo with baby oil. This was what it was. And he need to quit playing with our intelligence. And he needs to be found accountable for this. Like, that's kind of the two arguments that they had. And the judge basically deferred his ruling, and he has not ruled yet on what he is going to decide. If he gets acquitted, if he gets a new trial, or if he's going to outright sentence him. My guess is he's going to deny it and sentence him because he hasn't given any implication that he's going for any of that. But those are some of the things. So I have the transcript. If you guys want me to read through it, we can read through it. I have the prison letters that the people have sent in. I also have the support letters. I already read through some of the support letters, but we can get into some more. Now, here's a tip. Now, I don't read like Speedy Gonzalez, and I take my time. I read through whatever. If you are at home, you cleaning up, you just kind of want to hear what's going on, but you kind of want to speed me up because I don't know how long this video is going to be. I predict it's probably going to be a long one. You can go into your settings, not while I'm live, but if you're watching this when I'm no longer live, you can go into your settings and you can alter the playback speed and like speed me up faster or slow me down if you need me to slow down, and so on and so forth. But let's get into it. So first, let's get into the free game course that he is offering to show that he's a changed man. He's changing people's lives, even from inside of the jail. So let me pull this up and we'll just go through it. We'll go through the support letters. We'll go through, I got time today, baby, okay? So, and I'll probably put timestamps. If you're watching this and you want to be helpful as you're watching it, help your girl out and put some timestamps in the chat, okay? For the people that's watching on the playback. Like, be like, okay, so she started the inmate's letter at 17 minutes. Okay, she started blah, 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 boom, at this many minutes. Help your girl out. So anyway, so let's get into it. So this is his objective of Free Game with Diddy. So Free Game with Diddy is a 6-week educational program designed to equip participants with essential skills in business management, entrepreneurship, and personal development. The course offers exclusive insights onto the journey of Sean Combs, tracing his rise from humble beginnings to becoming a globally recognized icon and influential business mogul through firsthand accounts and real-world experiences drawn from Mr. Combs' corporate endeavors and entrepreneurial ventures. The program provides a unique perspective on navigating and succeeding in the business world. So this is a program that he is teaching to other inmates, and he even has course curriculum. So he has like quizzes, he has tests, he has all of those things to kind of help inmates learn business or have a skill in what they are good at when they get out. All right. So let's read through some more. Let me put my watermark over here because folks be stealing your stuff. All right. Boom. So we got our watermark on there or whatever. All right. So anyway, so it says the purpose of Free Game with Diddy is to empower aspiring entrepreneurs and professionals by providing, fundamental knowledge in business management, entrepreneurship, and personal development through a structured 6-week curriculum. The program offers exclusive access to strategies, experience, and insights that shaped Sean Diddy Combs' journey from modest beginnings to becoming a globally recognized business leader. By integrating real-world case studies and firsthand accounts, participants to pursue excellence, cultivate resilience, and develop the skills necessary to thrive in competitive industries. So that's kind of his objective. Now, he also, like I said, has a course curriculum and stuff like that, and a class outline. So this is his class outline. He has class number 1, 2, 3, 4. Basically, how to become a productive member in your community and all of those things. This is his lecture, The Art of Critical Decision Making. And these are his discussion questions. Why would we often hold distorted views of how decisions actually take place in organizations? It's why do humans find it so difficult to ignore sunk costs? How does confirmation bias contribute to polarization of attitudes? What are some of the dangers of reasoning by analogy? Why do leaders sometimes find themselves in wag dog dodges predicaments? And in what circumstances in a team likely to outperform individuals working on their own, and so on and so forth. So this is some of the course curriculum, some of the questions. What techniques have you used to help stimulate a constructive debate within a team? And so on and so forth. So all of these are parts of the course curriculum in the classes that he's teaching. And also there were some people who wrote support letters. So let me pull up some of the people who wrote a letter. And these are individuals who stated that they took his course and they benefited from the course as well. So let's see. I'm just going to click on them at random. All right, so this is one of the people's letters. Hopefully you guys can see it. I'm not going to read through all of their letters, but we're just going to skim through some of the letters that some of these inmates sent in to show that they are a person helping or getting help from this course. This comes to, it says, to Judge Subramanian. I am an inmate incarcerated in MDC, Brooklyn. I have been in here for, oh, hold on. I have me a little graphic and everything for the inmates. All right, child. I had to make me a little graphic and stuff. You know, trying to make it look a little professional. All right. So anyways, so it says, I'm an inmate incarcerated in MDC, Brooklyn. I have been in here for 4.5 years to this date. Since I've been here, I have obtained my GED. Besides my GED, I haven't had the chance to participate in any other programs because there aren't any till Mr. Combs incarcerated. And since he's been in the unit with myself and others, I gotten the chance to know Mr. Combs personally. And now I can say that I know him as a friend and not a, I guess, celebrity. While Mr. Combs been in my unit, I have seen a great change in Mr. Combs. He brings joy and happiness to the atmosphere in the unit. He changes the vibe positively and constructively to each and everyone. Because of Mr. Combs, everyone in the unit is treating and acting positively towards each other. And for many people, that's a step forward in becoming a better person for when they get out of prison. Mr. Combs is changing people's lives for many in here. And that is unthinkable. And we got Mr. Combs to thank for that. He cares, blah, 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 blah. It says, while in MDC, he started a class called Free Game with Diddy. What I take from this class is how to set realistic goals that would be easier to maintain. And it's given me the knowledge and tools I didn't have before. This class is teaching me how to be disciplined. I know by applying myself in this class, it will help become self-aware of my negative behavior and bad habits and so on and so forth. So they are speaking on this Free Game with Diddy curriculum. Let me click on another one. There was a lot of them that got submitted. So I'm gonna click on a few just at random. All right. So this is another letter. It says, Dear Judge Submarinian, my name is Douglas Welch. I am 42 years old. I am from Queens, New York. I've been in MDC, Brooklyn 2 years. I've been with Sean Combs for a year. I've gotten to know him as a person. He is the focused, positive, God-fearing man. Sean Combs brings love in the unit. I know because since he been here, all the Spanish and Black inmates cook and pray together, work out together too. Since he started his class, I've been going harder at my health journey. His class is called Free Game with Diddy. The class is 1 hour long once a week. He gives us a chance to ask him questions. He also lets us pick his brain for information about his personal life, his grind, his journey, and his blueprint for his success. He has showed us that it's the little adjustments to our everyday lives that adds up to a big change. Some of us are trying to better our health and fight drug addiction. Other people are on spiritual journey. He has taught me to make a plan and write down my progress each week, put my pride to the side, have no ego, and I have to sacrifice my bad habits to be successful. It means so much to me to be able to work out with Sean Combs. We both push each other to go harder with our diet, and we keep track of how many reps and how long we've been working out every day. When I'm released, I can move forward with what I've learned from his class, etc., etc. So that is another inmate that wrote on behalf of Diddy in this free game class. Ooh, I don't know if I could read this handwriting, but we're going to try. Okay. Dear Judge Submarinian, hello, my name is Quentin Davis. I am a fellow peer of Sean Combs. My personal experience with him has been great. Mr. Combs has shown me and the rest of the inmates here a lot of respect and taught us how to become a better version of ourselves. Mr. Combs started a 6-week class here at MDC where he teaches us business management, entrepreneurship, and life skills. It's a key factor and inside scoop on how Mr. Combs started from nothing and became the icon business mogul he is today. First-hand experience in the corporate world and his business ventures. The free game class with Mr. Combs has affected me in a good way and has impacted me because I've learned many things like how to create a successful plan and that the plan has to be realistic. I also learned how to research things better by using AI or Chat GPT. They got AI and Chat GPT in jail? And child, they be having everything. They got tablets, phones, Chat GPT, all kind of stuff going on. One thing that stuck out to me that Mr. Combs has taught me is his free game class is that I can make money, but I can't make, I don't know what that say. And that time waits for no one. All right, he got a lot of cursive going on and everything. So we're going to move on to the next letter, and then we're going to move on to some more. All right, so this is another one. It says, Dear Honorable Judge Submarinian, good day. I hope this letter meets you in a good spirit. My name is Ricaldo Frey. I'm a former correctional officer. Hold on, let me zoom in on this. Wait, how do I make this bigger? Anyways, let me just scoot up. All right. It says, Dear Honorable Judge Submarinian, good day. I hope this letter meets you in good spirit. My name is Ricaldo Frey. I am a former correctional officer from Westchester County. Now an inmate. Is sad to say how the roles turn. I am very disappointed in myself and embarrassed. My mother recently said, everything in life happens for a reason. Every bad situation is a good ending. I am writing this letter to speak on Mr. Combs, the man I have been blessed to meet in our time of trials and tribulations. The last 12 months of Mr. Combs and myself incarceration, I have gotten to know him as Sean and not the superstar or mogul the world knows. Has, wait, Mr. Combs something. I got to see firsthand the remorseful, respectful man he could be. I have had many personal encounters with Mr. Combs, giving me advice, words of wisdom, and encouragement. Mr. Combs' first month in the unit we are assigned to, I was a little nervous to ask for a favor for my 14-year-old daughter's birthday. He smiled even before I could finish my sentence. He promised to make something her day. I have witnessed this man giving away his food out of his locker to the less fortunate, which I admire because we're all in the same predicament. A few months ago, a group of inmates gathered around Mr. Combs to ask him something he started his career, I guess how he started his career. And his response was he's going to do a course to give us inmates the opportunity to be successful after finishing our time in prison. Mr. Combs come up with a 6-week course called Free Game with Diddy. The course is regarding life skills, business management, and entrepreneurship. He also got in-depth shedding light on how he started from intern to one of America's biggest black business moguls in present day. He showed firsthand knowledge, experience being in the corporate world. Mr. Combs has inspired me to change my view on life, etc., etc. All right. So that was that one. We'll pick one more and then be done. All right. So it says, Dear Judge Submaranian, it says, I pray when you receive this letter, you're in great health and spirit. My name is Didier Gerzon. I am from Colombia. I am currently incarcerated in MDC Brooklyn Unit 4 South. I work as head orderly of the unit. I have had the time to meet Mr. Combs since he got to the unit. In the time we have shared, I can honestly say that Mr. Combs is a lovable man, always willing to help his peers no matter his celebrity status, money, or fame. He never looked down or spoke down on any of his peers. We share day by day with humbleness. We help each other with love and care, whatever doubt a peer might have. Mr. Combs gathered the whole unit together and said to everyone that he would like to start a class. He asked everyone we're in agreement and if there wasn't any problem with everyone attending these classes. Everybody was motivated for the lesson. The class provided, in my case particularly, it had very much impact. Now that I have set a goal, it made me analyze my whole life. I was able to identify a lot of negative factors in my day of living, my dreams, and ways I went after my goals. All my life, my dream has been to be a genetic farmer. But when I ran into any setback or problems, I was quick to abandon my dreams. I was too inconsistent in the goals I set for myself. If I didn't see results back as fast as I would like, I would abandon them. In the class for Mr. Combs, I have been able to learn a format in which we can meet our goals, set and succeed. All right, so much more he wrote, but those are some of the people who wrote support letters. They had a ton more, but I'm not going to read every single one. Those are just to name a few of the people who took his course, did a letter in support of him for his course. Now, in addition to these support letters, I had already started reading through some of the support letters of his family. Now, as I told you guys, there were several people who wrote letters as far as Kim Porter's best friends. There were the girl all the way to the far right. She wrote a letter in support of him. There were several other of Kim Porter's best friends who wrote letters. In my previous video that I did on Diddy, I read through their letters. And in this video, we can read through some more. If you guys want me to go to the transcripts and then come back to these, let me know, because I also have the transcripts of the hearing. What do y'all want? Y'all want me to continue to read through the letters, or do you guys want me to read some of the arguments that they made at his hearing when they were asking for acquittal? And if you guys have not hit the like button yet, make sure you guys hit the like button as well. And y'all know y'all can always support the channel. Now, YouTube has this new thing where you can hype a video so that we can show up in the algorithm. Child, they always changing this algorithm around. First, it's like the video. Now it's hype the video. And you can even, if you're watching this after I'm live, you can send what's similar to a super chat, and it's called a super thanks. And you can like donate that way. But we don't prefer those because, child, YouTube take a whole big old chunk. So if you ever want to donate via Cash App, that's my Cash App. All right. And I still have a website, www.niquelaclaire.com. All right. So, somebody said, let me see, what are y'all saying? What y'all want me to read? How many more letters is it for the inmates? You want me to read more inmate letters? There was more. I didn't read them all. Yeah, there was more. If you guys want me to read more inmate letters, I can. I didn't read them all. I just figured y'all probably got tired of hearing them. But let me know what y'all want me to do next. We can go transcripts. We can go more inmate letters. We can go family support letters. You want to hear more inmate letters? All right, I'll pick 2 more and then we'll move on. Let's see. Who did it not click on? Because I was clicking all around. All right, here's another one. All right, y'all saying transcripts. Somebody said, are they reading all of these at sentencing? No, they're not reading all of these at sentencing. So basically what happens is the judge, on his free time where he's not on the bench, he reads through these to get a basic understanding of what people are saying. And they narrow down how many they read at sentencing. So they don't read through all of them. You don't have time to read through all of them. It's just impossible. Like, he has over 100 letters between the inmates, his family, his colleagues. We'll be there all day if all of them people got to talk. Everybody's not gonna talk. So what they do is you submit them, you know, on the docket. The judge reads it, and then you have a chance to read through some of them or do some in person, but there's like a limit. All right, so let's get through another inmate story, and then some of you guys are saying you guys want to hear the transcripts from the hearing. We can go to that next. And then the support letters and so on and so forth. I got time, baby. So where's my tab? Oh, there we go. All right, so here is another letter. All right, so dear Honorable Judge Submarinian, good day. I hope this letter meets you in good spirits. My name is Shanos Scruggs. I'm a former inmate at MDC Brooklyn, where I had gotten the opportunity to meet Mr. Sean Combs. I'm honored to say he is a respectable human being. Mr. Combs has shown myself and the guys in the unit he's very remorseful. Mr. Combs also has shown great leadership, where everyone in the unit stuck together. He has shown why he became the superstar and mogul he's known to be today. While I was serving my violation in MDC Brooklyn, Mr. Combs was working just as intensely to return himself and others, identifying his flaws as well as his good. Your Honor, I must say I was raised without a father, so I wasn't able to receive the proper guidance a child should have growing up. Mr. Combs loaned me I think a ear. Mr. Combs loaned me a ear and time on multiple occasions as a father figure, giving me something and not and knowledge. I guess ideas maybe and knowledge to keep me from coming back to jail. Mr. Combs also gave his open arms to the guys in the unit who were less fortunate. Me being a person who's been around multiple famous people while incarcerated at MDC Brooklyn, those things mean a lot. Not everyone shows compassion and gratitude being in the position he's in. Before my sentence was served, I had gotten the opportunity to participate in Mr. Combs' class he came up with, which was named Free Game with Diddy, a 6-week course about life skills, business management, and entrepreneurship. He gave the inmates in the unit the inside scoop of how he started as an intern to becoming a superstar mogul. I was really appreciative to receive some knowledge of sort to take back to the real world and not have to think about doing something illegal. He taught me to come up with a plan for both success and for failure. He told me that successful people do what unsuccessful people won't do. He said if I wasn't building, I was destroying. Your Honor, please take this letter into consideration. Mr. Combs, to get back to his family, being the loving father, the loving, caring father I learned of him to be towards myself and others. He does not deserve the harsh punishment. All right. So, that is another letter from the inmates. Now, there's still some more, but we're going to move on to the transcripts. So, let me pull up the transcripts. Now, let's see. Where's the transcripts? So again, the next thing that I'm going to read is the transcript. So if you're in the comments and you want to help your girl out with a timestamp, put the 9:25 hearing acquittal transcripts at the 42-minute mark. All right. So boom. All right. So let's go to the transcript. All right, so this is the transcript. Shout out to Dennis Byron for keeping your girl up to par with the transcripts. All right, so All right, so they call the case. Miss Slavic says, "Good morning, Your Honor. Christy Slavic, Meredith Foster, Madison, whoever, Emily Johnson, and Mitzi Steiner for the United States were joined at counsel table by paralegal specialist Shannon Becker. The judge says, good morning. Then Diddy's team says, Miss Shapiro says, good morning, Your Honor. Alexandra Shapiro for Mr. Combs, along with Jason Driscoll, Brian Steele, Nicole Westmoreland, Mark Agnifilo, Tinny Garagos, Xavier Donaldson, and our colleagues Christopher Johnson and Jonah Altman are all sitting at the front counsel table for Mr. Combs. The judge says, good morning to you. And good morning, Mr. Combs. Diddy says, good morning to the judge. And the judge says, we're here for argument on the Rule 29 and Rule 33 motions filed by the defense. Ms. Slavic, you saw the order with a few of the questions that we had. Ms. Slavic says, yes, Your Honor. The judge, I thought we'd jump into those after we addressed the questions. I'm happy for each side to take some time to address anything that they wanted. Ms. Shapiro, same for you. I'm assuming that you're going to be arguing for the defense. Ms. Shapiro says, yes, Your Honor. The judge says, all right. The only thing I'll say is that you don't have to take the full 15 minutes. If you said everything that you need to in your papers, the briefs were excellent. They were comprehensive. They were very long. And so there's no need to rehash what's in the papers. But if there's anything that you left out or any new material that you wanted to bring to the court's attention, you should certainly do so. All right, so this is him basically saying, listen, I already heard all of your arguments already. Y'all typed up a whole long spiel and I already read it. So I get it. You don't have to go through every single word line by line. Just kind of give me the bullet points. You ain't even got to take all of 15 minutes. Because let's be honest, the judge already, in my mind, I assume has his mind made up on no. Okay? So boom. So this is the judge telling them, like, listen, y'all ain't got to take up the whole time. We can get through this quickly or whatever. All right, so he said, with that, Ms. Slavic, are you going to be handling the argument? Ms. Slavic says, Your Honor, I think we're going to do a bit of tag teaming from the government side. So if you want to go in order of the questions, we're happy to do that. Ms. Foster will be handling the first 2 questions. I'll be handling the second 2 questions. So however Your Honor wants to proceed. The judge says, all right, Ms. Foster, let's start with the question of waiver/forfeiture. So the defense says, looking at the 3 cases we cited in our order, that sure, there might be a forfeiture of a Rule 33 argument challenging the jury instructions, but under these 3 cases, at least you still can make a Rule 29 sufficiency argument based on a different construction than what you presented at the jury instructions phase. It says, do you have a case that says otherwise, given this very recent Second Circuit precedent? Ms. Foster says, yes, Your Honor. I would actually point the court to a case from earlier this year, which is United States v. Kelly. That's 128 F4 387. And that's whatever. In that case, the defendant argued on appeal that one of the state statutes that underlay his RICO and Mann Act convictions was unconstitutionally vague, both as applied and on its face. In that case, the court upheld the lower court's holdings that the vagueness challenge was ultimately and forfeited because it should have been raised in a Rule 12 motion. So while this case didn't arise in the Rule 29 context, it clearly stands for the proposition which the government is making here, that arguments of statutory construction that can be made pretrial, like those here, should be raised pretrial in a Rule 12 motion or deemed forfeited. So basically they're saying, listen, some of the arguments that they're trying to make now, they should have made them before we even started trial. Like, don't come up here trying to rehash or try to get a bite at the apple and argue things that if these were an issue, you should have argued it before trial even started. So that's kind of what she's saying here. It says that case also cites the Second Circuit decision in United States v. Crowley, which is blah, 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 blah. The Second Circuit from 2000. I would also just generally point the court to a different decision on the Second Circuit in a different case, which blah, 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 blah. And that's from 2003, as well as the Supreme Court decision in Davis. So basically, Diddy's trying to get his sentence acquitted, and he's trying to argue different points. So they're citing case law from other cases and basically saying these cases are why, blah, 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 blah. You need to just keep it how it is, whatever. Don't listen to them, blah, blah, blah. So it says, in these cases, those discuss the broader fairness concerns that really underlie the government's position on waiver and forfeiture, and why it's so important that motions such as this be brought pretrial. as these cases explain if claims that reasonably could be adjudicated and brought pretrial could be delayed until after conviction. Then there would be no incentive for defendants to raise those claims pretrial because a defendant can just hold them in their back pocket in the event of hoping for an acquittal. And then in the event of conviction, that's basically what's happened here. Raise those statutory arguments as sort of a second bite at the apple. So, in addition to encouraging gamesmanship, this just raises a host of fairness, efficiency, and justice concerns. First, as the court has explained, it encourages defendants to raise these claims after the witnesses, the parties, the court, the jury has all gone through the length and burden of a lengthy trial, which occurred here. So basically, they're saying, like, listen, we already went through the trial process. The jury already heard the evidence. They already decided that he was guilty. So we already went through this. Like, there's no reason that he's getting acquittal because we already went through the proper channels and we already went through the proper trial. Like, and he's guilty, blah, 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 basically. She said, and I think this concern is particularly real here because essentially what the defendant is arguing is that he can raise for the first time after a multi-month trial and after he actually suggested a definition of being a lot lizard, which the court adopted, that actually that was incorrect interpretation and that basically, essentially, they're making the argument that trial, they sort of knew that this, and they had every basis for knowing that this definition of making the arguments they make today based on the indictment, but they chose not to raise until after trial and after they suggested a contrary definition to the court. The judge says, well, let's separate out the jury instructions from the indictment. So kind of looking back in time and then looking forward in time. So I think the defense argument is, look, there are these three cases that say that the Rule 29 argument is not affected by any failure to object to jury instructions. Let's put that to the side for the moment. You're saying that based on Kelly and these other cases, the type of constitutional challenge that the defense has raised, those are the types of arguments that you would have had to make at the Rule 12 stage. And having not made those arguments, those are, I suppose, forfeited, right? And then she says, that's correct, Your Honor. He says, all right. And the defense response, yes, perhaps a facial challenge based on a defect in the indictment would in fact be forfeited based on failure to raise that in the initial stage. But I understand the defense to be making an as applied argument as to their constitutional issues, so that is based on the evidence that was presented at trial. So the appropriate place to make the argument was at the Rule 29 stage. She says, we're sorry, Your Honor. And Kelly, that was also as an as applied challenge. The decision in this circuit are clear that if an as applied challenge can be made on the face of the indictment, and people regularly bring as applied challenges where they can be brought pretrial, then they should be brought in a Rule 12. And I don't believe that the defendant, while they say a line in their brief that they couldn't have brought this earlier, it's entirely unclear to me why they couldn't have, because in the lengthy speaking indictment in this case, and in the government's own representation of its evidence and everyone's understanding of the evidence in this case, there was never an allegation that the defendant, for example, financially profited from the lot lizard behavior. And so this is the type of argument that could be brought pretrial and on the face of the indictment and could have been raised and resolved at that stage. I also do, though, want to push back on the idea that those three cases can be read as broadly as the defense would ask the court to read them. So in the first case, Dennis, while the defendant sort of framed the argument as an as-applied challenge to the constitutionality of the statute, the court found that he was essentially just raising a sufficiency argument. And that made sense because in that case, the defendant was arguing that he couldn't be tried under the statute without infringing on the First Amendment unless there was a finding that he had made a true threat. All right. So hopefully you guys, you said it's all that long, dry reading I can't sit through. Just do the commentary. Exposing the truth, we're reading the transcripts word for word. I'm not doing commentary. We're reading what they said in court. If you can't sit through it, then find another video that gives you the commentary. And if you want the commentary on what is discussed in this motion, I said that at the beginning of the video. All right. Now we're reading the actual transcript. So if you don't like it, then you can leave. Now, bye. Now back to the transcripts. If you guys have not hit the like button yet, make sure you hit the like button. So you must have just came here because I asked what y'all wanted. Do y'all want me to read the transcripts? Do y'all want me to read the letters? What y'all want? This is what they asked for, and this is what it is. Court is not always entertaining. They're not always gonna say, "Hey Diddy, how many drops of baby oil did you rub on your nips? How many times did they release fluid and you rubbed it on your chest?" You know, that's not what this is. This is him trying to get an acquittal, and the government is arguing about why he shouldn't, and then the defense is going to argue why he should. So that's what this is. Now let me take a sip of my pure cranberry juice. I got a new brand. I tried to go the cheaper route of pure cranberry juice because you know it's really expensive. So I be getting this one brand that's like $16, and I'm like, child, I'm spending too much on cranberry juice, but I really like it. And I really like it because when I get parched while I'm reading, or like if I'm doing commentary, I can put ice in it, and if the ice melts, it's not like watered down because it's so bitter. But this new brand, I tried to go the cheaper route, child. It's real bitter, child. But anyways, let me take a couple sips of my pure cranberry juice and then get back to reading. But I was letting the ice really melt because it's good and bitter. Whew. So anyway, yeah, you're right, Madison. All right, so where were we? Oh, okay. So it says wait. It says First Amendment, unless there was a finding that he had made a true threat and the government agreed. So both parties were in agreement on what the relevant legal principles were and what the court had to find in order to not infringe on the First Amendment. So the court in that case found that this was really just sufficiency argument that the defendant was making as to whether or not the evidence at trial even met the true threat standard. And the judge says, well, the court did construe the statute in the context of the Rule 29 challenge. That's the first thing it did. And then it addressed the Rule 29 challenge without addressing any kind of waiver or forfeiture argument. Then it goes to the Rule 33 challenge to the instructions, and it very clearly says that the defendant has forfeited his challenge to the instruction because he didn't object to a broader construction of the statute at the jury instruction phase. So how do you reconcile that? Ms. Foster says, I would agree with you that the court does go on to hold that there does need to be a true threat in order for there to not be a First Amendment issue, but the court does that after it clearly states this is actually a sufficiency argument that while the government is claiming waiver, no one is disagreeing about the true threat has to be found. And so essentially, the only disagreement between the parties is whether or not the evidence was sufficient. The court then, I agree, does go on to separately find, and I think that at that point, it's one of the last circuits to sort of address that question. And so it does go on and address that issue, but it doesn't cause either. It's not going against either's party interpretation of the statute at that point. And then the judge says, understood. going back to the initial point, it was Kelly Crowley. And was there another case that you had mentioned? She says Crowley and Dennis, which is a Supreme Court case. Those, I think, speak to the sort of equitable concerns that the government is raising with respect to why the prejudice that the government has, the efficiency concerns that arise when these types of arguments are made so late in the game. The court says, all right, understood. And then Diddy's team speaks. So he addresses Diddy's team, my bad. It says, all right, understood. Miss Shapiro, why don't we do this ping pong style? You want to address the cases and the arguments that Miss Foster made? And Miss Shapiro says, sure, Your Honor. She says, first, I just want to start by noting that as the court's questions indicated, the Dennis case is squarely on point. In that there was a statutory argument based on a constitutional provision. The defendant had waived or failed to preserve the jury instruction issue, but the court made very clear it was appropriate to raise that statutory construction, which was again based on constitutional argument, as our arguments here are. And the court said that that's perfectly fine, and you can raise it at Rule 29. I also want to call the court's attention to the fact that in addition to whatever, which I think are very clear on their face and stand for proposition that on Rule 29, the evidence is assessed in light of the elements under the correct law. That also recently in Lopez caused the Second Circuit, which we only briefly discussed in our motion, but which is cited there that the case was decided, I believe, during this trial or at the end. I think it's a date in July, and the government made the exact same argument in the Lopez case. This issue was discussed at oral argument and the subject of the 28J letter. So at oral argument, I made the point to the Second Circuit that sufficiency is not assessed based on the jury instructions. It's assessed based on the correct law. And the government filed a 28J letter in which it said the same thing. It says here about this case, it said the case only applies when there's an unnecessary element added to the jury charge. Our response at that docket, which is cited in our brief, so they're just arguing on like, okay, this is why we think that we should be able to make our motions. And these cases are why we feel like we should make our motions. That's basically what they are saying. So I'm going to kind of move ahead. So the judge says, all right, so if there are alternative requirements, then let's put the financial motive part of it to the side because that involves Mr. Combs specifically. But as to the other part of it, why wouldn't Mr. Combs be liable under, at the very least, a willfully causing theory? Because at least in some of these instances, either Miss Ventura or Jane furnished the payment. Oh, wait, I missed some of the argument about the charge. All right, so let me start here. She says, I'll start with you. Okay, so the two statutory construction arguments that you've made. The first, that the defendant in the Mann Act prosecution has to have at least a financial motive. And second, that there has to be a bilateral exchange of money and hanky-panky. That's that part of the parcel with the definition of what a lot lizard is. So I take it that given those two, well, let me first ask you, are those alternative requirements or do they have to exist in all cases together? Ms. Shapiro says no. Those are alternative arguments. So our argument is that the statute should be construed narrowly, essentially to only apply to pimping commercial I guess purveyors and or prostitution, or in the alternative at the very least. It can't be applied to this particular situation. Not only because Mr. Combs was merely an alleged consumer, but because this is a wire type of case. The judge says, all right, so if there are alternative requirements, then let's put the financial motive part of it to the side because that involves Mr. Combs specifically. But as to the other part of it, why wouldn't Mr. Combs be liable at the very least a willfully causing theory? Because at least in some of those instances, either Miss Ventura or Jane furnished the payment for the hanky panky that occurred with the escorts. So, wouldn't the facts here support a conviction on willfully causing theory if Mr. Combs had the relevant intent and the required intent as we instructed the jury? And then the actions were performed by Miss Ventura, Jane, and the escorts. That would correspond to the bilateral exchange of money and, doing the do. So Ms. Shapiro says, no, Your Honor, and there are several reasons for that. First of all, and sort of most fundamentally, the point in these cases that we cited were a number of statutes have held that being a lot lizard only involves an exchange between A and B, where A is paying B to have hanky panky with A. The purpose of that would be entirely defeated if the government could get around that with any theory of secondary liability. For instance, some of those cases involve things like a person at a booth who's watching one or more people engaging in a sexual activity, but not touching the person who's watching. And those cases are very clear that in those states, those courts are saying that is not, engaging in lot lizards. So basically, they're saying, listen, he wasn't even humping on them, he was just watching. So because he was only watching, that's not considered prostitution. Okay. And they brung up cases that would say that, oh, if you just watching somebody pleasure them, that's not, whatever. The Mann Act, it says the actus reus of the Mann Act is the transportation, and certainly the government's theory, presumably about transportation, is that somebody else was doing the transport, but it was Mr. Combs. It was at Mr. Combs' direction. But the other part of the crime is the mens rea, the intent that the transportation will result in people engaging in lot lizard behavior. If we're right that, lot lizards doesn't include commercial voyeurism, I'll call it that. And that's the term that some of these cases use. Then you can't say that he's willfully causing that because then there's no point to the rule at the idea that that's what is in the defendant's head about his understanding of engaging in lot lizard behavior. It says, and if his understanding of engaging in that behavior is that it has to be narrowed to avoid a situation where we are not including conduct that a number of states have said is not that type of behavior, then you can't get around that by just saying that here. It was two other people and he was paying because that's exactly the situation in these other cases. Like, for example, the Wooten case in California, and just the way the issue is articulated in a number of these cases. The judge says, okay, so while we're on that subject, on the bilateral exchange of money for doing the do, you mentioned Wooten. What other case is your, source? The attorney for Diddy says, so there are a number of cases. So the Paulina case in New York, the judge says, okay. And then she says, there's also the Green case in New York. And in addition, there's a Georgia case, which we cite in our opening brief. I can't remember the name of it. And there's a Pennsylvania case. Those are a few examples, but there are many state court cases that have held. The Georgia case involved a situation in which the government had alleged that a private residence was being used for, lot lizard behavior. And the court held that the evidence didn't support that because there was no direct evidence of exactly what was going on in the residence, and that it could as easily have been commercial voyeurism, which would not qualify as doing lot lizard behavior. That one is called Smoot v. State. It's cited on page 21 to 22 of our opening brief. And then the judge says, all right, yes, switching gears. And then we'll come back to Ms. Foster on a financial motive. What's the case where that we should look at? Mr. Shapiro says, so on financial motive, sorry, are you asking about aiding and abetting? Because I think it's clear that, and then the judge says, no, I heard you on the underlying reasons why you shouldn't allow the government to approach this from a secondary liability perspective. But now I'm going back to your actual statutory interpretation arguments. So you've mentioned the cases that support the definition that would include a bilateral exchange of money for doing the do. What about the defendant having a financial motive? Is that just pure constitutional avoidance issue, or is there? And then she says it's constitutional avoidance issue. And just to be clear, and I think, and I'll get to that in a second, if I may. But in addition, the other points are that the statute originally had this explicit text referring to immoral purposes and debauchery, which was excised, I guess, whatever, in 1986 after this case. Are y'all still wanting to hear the transcripts? Let me know. Let me see how many people are on here. Child, it's 1:24 a.m. At this point, let me see who on here. Because y'all not even talking no more. Y'all went to sleep. Okay, still several of y'all on here. I'm thinking y'all done went to sleep on the kid. Child, okay. Y'all say yes. All right. I just want to make sure y'all still want to hear. Not the other person that was talking, the people that requested to hear. So anyways, and like I said, the way that a court proceeding does, it's not like entertaining, and all of the arguments aren't made all at once. Like they go through all of the different procedures, make their points in between, blah, 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 like that. And then we get like a summary. So like us YouTubers or people who go and look at the trials, by the time like we've heard all of this, we're taking notes and we give you guys a summary. So when you see content creators at court cases, and especially like federal cases, like we listening to all of these details to kind of give you guys, an interpretation. So anyways, are you guys, what is your predictions of the sentence? Do you think that the judge is going to go closer to 14 months that the defense is asking for, or 7 years like the prosecution is asking for? Or do you think that he will exceed what the prosecution is asking, because he can go all the way up to 20 years, the max? What are you guys' prediction on what his sentence will be? Do you think it'll be somewhere in the middle, or what? And then I'll go back to reading some more as I sip my pure cranberry juice. You said, I think he's getting 2 to 4. I think he's going to fall right in the middle. Okay. I see. All right, so let's get going. All right, so he says, and just to be clear, I think I'll get to that. You said, S. Rogers says 10 years. Landa says, you think that he's going to exceed what the prosecution is asking for? Julia says, he should let him stay longer. They love him in there. He's like Jesus. Sweet Tea says 5 years. Hope not 14 months. Triple C says he's getting out. 1975 says Time served. FBA King says time served. All right, so we gonna see who right. All right, so who's talking? Okay, so Miss Shapiro says it's constitutional avoidance issue. And just to be clear, I think, and I'll get to that in a second, if I may, but in addition to the other points are that the statute originally had this explicit text referring to immoral purposes and debauchery, which was is it excised in 1986. After Cleveland and Caminante or whatever. There was a subsequent very short summary order by the Supreme Court in which the court reversed a Seventh Circuit holding affirming, which had affirmed a conviction there where the defendants didn't have a commercial motive. And then, of course, we have this constitutional point. And one of the points I wanted to emphasize there, if I may, is that if you look at the Cleveland and Caminiti cases, they're very clear that the court is saying the word prostitution. Even though those other words were in the statute, include doing the do for hire or not for hire when it's for immoral purposes, like traveling interstate for a woman to be a mistress or a concubine, for example, or in the case of the Cleveland case, polygamy. And the court is very clear that it doesn't matter if it's for hire. But then, and then the judge says, just to push back a little bit there, in the Caminiti case, in Caminiti, it is true that the court said that prostitution can be for hire or not for hire. But Cleveland said the opposite, that at least as of 1946, the definition was doing the do for hire. In that case, the court held that polygamy would fall under the immoral purpose clause. So for that reason, the court sustained the convictions in that case. But, doing a lot lizard behavior wasn't an issue in that case because that's not the part of the statute that the court was looking at. It was instead looking at the debauchery and immoral purposes clause. Diddy's lawyer says, Your Honor, respectfully, I disagree with that because there's a passage in the opinion in which the court discusses, in quotes, the Diddy case, which is that case from the late 19th century involving a similarly worded immigration statute. And the court quotes that part of the Diddy that talks about how the word prostitution includes doing the do relations for hire or not for hire. So respectfully, I think Cleveland has been cited by the government here and by the government and courts in many other cases for the lot lizard behavior that the statute is not limited to commercial purpose. The judge says, right, because at the time, the statute was not limited to commercial purposes because the language was different. It was changed in 1986 amendment. But as of the time of Cleveland, the statute had a bunch of other language in there that would cover non-commercial transactions. That was the point that the court was making in Cleveland because it points out right after that citation that you pointed to that it had no view on whether the Caminiti case came out rightfully or wrongly, but the court noted that because of the broad language of debauchery and immoral purpose, the statute was not limited to commercial transactions and could include a broader sweep that would include things like, at the time, polygamy. And that is Cleveland left at it. It says, and you have the 1986 amendment, which obviously strips out the other language. In fact, it strikes the entire statutory text and replaces it with language that has the prostitution and the criminal violation language that's in the present statute. As of that time, I don't think anyone's questioning that the settled meaning of doing the, paying for the hanky-panky was hanky-panky for hire, right? So at that time, Congress looked at it they had the language from Cleveland where Cleveland itself said that the paying for the cookie snacks means that it's doing the do for hire. And then in 1986, they reenacted the language with the word prostitution. All right, stripping out the broader language that the Cleveland court had relied on in sustaining the conviction in that case. And Miss Shapiro says, "Well, I guess." The judge says, "I don't know that really matters here." And then she says, "I don't know. That's the problem for us. Anything Your Honor is saying, it's all consistent with our argument here." The judge says, "I don't necessarily disagree with you because I think you're making two further arguments that are based on the state authorities, Paulino, Wooten, Freeman, these other cases that you're citing. So I think that's an independent issue." And then she says, "Right." The court says, "So now with that background as to the financial motive," Diddy's lawyer says, "The other thing I was going to say was," the judge interrupts and says, "I just want to make sure that I'm getting your best cases. So, on the defendant having a financial motive, I take it that your answer was, well, after Cleveland, there was a summary order that dealt with," she says, "by the Supreme Court of the United States." And then the judge says, "Right. That dealt with the Seventh Circuit that can only be read to require a defendant in one of these cases to have a financial motive." Diddy's lawyer says, "That's correct." The judge says, "Okay, I'll take a look at that." Diddy's lawyer says, "The only other thing I'll say, and I understand Your Honor said about Cleveland, but I do think it's important to understand that when you look at the Caminetti, which apart from our debate about Cleveland, clearly it is saying that the word prostitution doesn't require that you have hanky panky for hire. We know that holding is not good law because of Griswold and its progeny, including Lawrence, leading up to the Lawrence v. Texas, and all the federal constitutional law that developed afterwards about people's freedoms and rights to privacy to engage in essentially, as long as they're consenting adults and having, hanky panky relations in whatever way they see fit. The judge says, "Understood. Miss Foster. So going back to the question that we started with, which is, given what Miss Shapiro just said, is the government going to concede that? Yeah, we raised the issue about secondary liability, but we don't think that you should adopt the defense construction of the statute. If you were to adopt that construction, then I suppose I would come the aiding and abetting and willfully causing the convictions would rise and fall with the main liability, or do you have a way in which those theories would nevertheless be grounds to sustain the convictions?" Ms. Foster said, "Yes, Your Honor." So I think your question gets at something that really distinguishes this case in a lot of ways from some of the cases that the defendant is raising, such as the one where a person at the booth watches two individuals engage in a humping relations act, and which shows that I would say, even under primary liability, even if the court were to adopt their definition, the defendant's conviction would still stand. That's because what the defendant really appears to be challenging is the vagueness or the interpretation of the term prostitution. My understanding of their argument is that that term, based on sort of state case law and definitions, is overbroad and should be interpreted in only these two specific situations. One where the person who engages in the humping contact with the escort is the person who's paying the escort, and two, where a person has a financial motive. All right, it says here the defendant seems to be arguing because the defendant wasn't involved in the humping contract with the escort. That he's not guilty. But the issue in front of this court, and they made this point with the actus reus, the issue before this court is not whether the defendant himself engaged in the humping and the paying for the cootie box. It's whether there's sufficient evidence from which this court could find that the defendant knowingly transported an individual with the intent that the person would engage in giving up the cookie jar for money. And here, even in a world where the defendant wasn't engaged and involved in those acts of paying for the cuckoo himself, there was clearly sufficient evidence for the reasons you mentioned from which a jury could convict under the Mann Act, even under the definition, this constrained definition of what paying for the cookie jar that the defendant seems to be arguing for, because there is evidence in the record, as Your Honor noted, that even though the defendant was the one who sort of ultimately funded these acts, the victims, the one who were actually engaging in the hunching and the, getting entered into, they were the ones that was doing to do with the escorts, and they were the ones who handed over the money in a large majority of the cases. So when the defendant, even under primary liability standpoint, when he would facilitate transportation, a reasonable juror can conclude based on that evidence that he was doing so with the intent that paying for the cookie jar, even under that narrow definition they're arguing for, occurred, which is that the victims, the people who turned over the cash, were the people who had the intercourse and the humping and the hunching. So I think even if the court were to adopt their interpretation of what paying for the cookie jar is, which is sort of a separate from ours, where the person who engages in the penetration doesn't have to be the same person who turns over the money. The defendant would still be liable under a primary liability, even under their definition. So basically what they're saying, and I think this is the prosecution now. Wait, hold on. Wait, what page are we on? Okay, yeah, we're reading what the prosecution is saying. All right, my bad, child. It's late. I done switched over to the prosecution and didn't even realize. All right. So this is the government, and they're basically arguing that they trying to say that the word paying for the cookie jar is too broad, and they're trying to say that because he didn't actively have relations with the escort, that he wasn't engaging in prostitution. And they're saying basically that's BS, and here's why. All right. So she says, let me get back to where I was. So she said, even if the court were to adopt their definition, the defendant's conviction would still stand. That's because what the defendant really appears to be challenging is the vagueness or the interpretation of the term. My understanding of their argument is that the term, based on sort of state case law definitions, is overbroad, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I read that. It says, he's trying to argue that he wasn't the one that gave the money, that the girls gave the money, but he the one paying the money, girl, whatever. That's what they're saying. So it says, here the defendant seems to be arguing because the defendant wasn't involved in the actual penetration contract. Okay, so I read that already. So they're saying, like, listen, he's trying to say because he wasn't the one that was actually penetrating the escort, that he's not liable for being labeled engaging in paying for it, and they're basically saying that's BS. The law still stands. He paid for it, he facilitated it, blah blah blah. All right. So it says da, 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 so they said, okay, I'm trying to get back to where I was at. All right, even it says in here, even in a world where the defendant wasn't engaged and involved in those acts of um the, penetration himself, there was clearly sufficient evidence for those reasons you mentioned from which a jury could convict under the Mann Act, even under this definition. This constrained definition of prostitution that the defendant seems to be arguing for, because there is evidence in the record, as Your Honor noted, that even though the defendant was the one who sort of ultimately funded these acts, the victims, the ones who were actually engaging in being penetrated by the escorts, were the ones who handed over the money in large majority. So when the defendant, even under primary liability standpoint, when he would facilitate transportation, a reasonable juror could conclude based on that evidence that he was doing so with the intent of paying for having, penetration for money. Where was I at? Because I read that already. Anyway, so it says, so I think even if the court were to adopt their interpretation of paying for cuckoo, which is sort of separate from ours, where the person who engages in intercourse doesn't have to be the same person who turns over the money, the defendant would still be liable under a primary liability, even under their definition based on the evidence at trial. And I think there was more sufficient evidence of that. But the defendant at times in their argument sort of seems to make a second step, which is like, actually the person who transports also needs to have had some involvement in the paying for the cuckoo, which or paying for the cucumber. Actually, since these was escorts, they was paying for the cucumber. All right, so I'm gonna say paying for the cucumber in exchange for the word prostitution. Because, when you say too many trigger words, y'all know how YouTube do. So I substitute certain words so that it's not so many of them being said. Because if they hear the word too many times, they like, child, age restricted, this, that. But anyways, so that's why, if you guys were wondering, well, why does she keep substituting these words? Why isn't she not saying the words? Because lately, a lot of my videos, they've been getting age restricted. And when you say certain words, YouTube be playing games. So that's that. So anyways, back to where I was. So they saying basically we got enough evidence that he facilitated this, and he facilitated in the transportation of the cucumber to go penetrate his girls. They would help arrange the tickets, they would pay for transportation of the individuals, they would set up the flights and the defendant. The judge says, let me just make sure I understand that. I understand your argument about primary liability. You're saying on I suppose it would be willfully causing theory. And then she says, yes, or aiding and abetting. And then the judge says, but you're saying that Miss Ventura and Jane, they did the transporting, so they did that. They might not have had the relevant intent, or maybe you're saying they did. The government prosecution basically says, well, I think they would have, because as they both testified, they understood that when they were turning over money, they were doing it for the services of getting the large cucumbers to penetrate them. The court or the judge, he says, and a reasonable jury could have determined that. So you're saying that they had all the intent, they did the acts, and they also paid the money, and they did the penetration too. Miss Foster, the government says yes. The judge says, and that would meet the defense's construction of the statute, right? And she says that's correct. And the defendant, clearly the evidence would suggest, aided and abetted or willfully caused that by being the person who suggested it and was the ultimate source of the payments, had his own staff, oftentimes arranged travel and booked travel. So I think sort of in none of their Rule 29 arguments actually on the statutory construction may actually matter. that much in light of the evidence and the standard that the court has to apply in adjudicating a Rule 29 motion, which is to see whether there is any evidence from which a reasonable juror could find the defendant guilty. The judge says, all right, so, and then Diddy's lawyer says, Your Honor, may I respond just very briefly to that? And the judge says, you know what? Might make most sense since I'm going to give each side a chance to come back at the end. You can pick it up at the closings, just so we can get through these questions at the beginning. So Miss Slavic, and this is another prosecution attorney, Miss Slavic. She says, yes, Your Honor, I'll be responding to the second two questions related to the First Amendment arguments. If Your Honor would permit me, may I answer the fourth question first? Kind of go out of order. And then the judge said, yes, that's fine. All right. So this is another one of the prosecution members basically responding to some of the motions that Diddy's team presented. So this is another part of what they presented as a reason why he should get acquittal or whatever. Let me read what you guys are saying. Blue Sky says, are they trying to retry the case? So yes, basically what they're trying to do is say, listen, he didn't engage in paying for coochie. He didn't, so it's not considered prostitution. He just watched. And I'm going to go even further. He is similar to a movie producer and somebody who makes adult films and adult movies and, creating scenes on an amateur level. And they're basically arguing that the judge should vacate these charges with an acquittal or issue a new trial. And the government is basically saying, we already went through trial. We already presented the evidence. The jury already came to a decision. They already found him guilty, so he guilty, and that's just that. So that's kind of what the two are arguing. Yeah. Somebody says, you can pay for a lot lizard activity over the internet in a live stream, but you can't pay to watch it live in front of you. Basically, that's just how it go. You can pay through the OnlyFans or, the web chats or whatever, but if you pay for it to be in front of you, that's classified as something else, because there's also exchanges in the actions with folks too. So, but yeah, that's interesting because people do pay to watch it virtually. And it's definitely different from juices all in your face and, all of that. So, yeah. Somebody said they asked for a new trial on the Mann Act. However, the evidentiary hearing motion requested by Manzaro could cause a new trial of all charges. All right. So, whew, I ain't never getting this one again. My ice done melted so much and it's still so bitter. I like my, cranberry to be like bitter, but this is like really, really bitter. Whew. Anyways. Where was I at? Oh, she says, okay, so this is the prosecution. Miss Slavic. So the fourth question was about whether the records showed that every time an escort traveled across state lines, it was filmed. And I want to just start by answering the question directly. So this is where they get into he's a movie producer and he's just creating a scene. This is where they're getting into that part. This is the 1 hour 39 minute mark. They're getting into like that. He's just he's just a movie producer. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, All right. So the fourth question was about whether the records showed that every time an escort traveled across state lines, it was filmed. And I want to just start by answering the question directly. The answer to the question is no. The record does not show that every time an escort traveled internationally or domestically and they had sexual relations, that the act was filmed. To be clear, I don't understand the defendant to be arguing that. I think in the reply brief, the defense says that the escorts were routinely filmed. It doesn't say that they were always filmed every time they crossed state lines, and the record surely does not support the influence that every time an escort traveled, the act was filmed by the defendant. We note in our opposition brief that the evidence at trial reflects that the defendant frequently filmed his freak offs or hotel nights, but he didn't do so all the time. That evidence, of course, includes the testimony of both Cassie, Miss Ventura, and Jane, as well as the two escorts that testified at trial. But the two summary exhibits at Government Exhibit 1402 and 1406 I think could be helpful to the court. Those exhibits show examples of freak offs in the case of Miss Ventura or hotel nights in the case of Jane. It's not an exhaustive list, as I think was made clear at trial, but it's a list of certain freak offs or hotel nights, and those exhibits show travel records when they were available, and they also indicate instances in which there were explicit videos or explicit photos recovered by the government. Those are any reference to the X series, those are explicit videos and content. So, what those charts show is that on many occasions there was travel for a freak off or a hotel night, whether it was Miss Ventura, whether it was Jane, whether it was the male cucumbers that or but that there was no videos or photos recovered from those specific encounters. I'm happy to go through. We can pull up those exhibits if your honor would find it helpful. The judge says, but I think your second argument is even if it was the case that every one of these incidents was filmed, that would not make a difference under the relevant. And then she says, that's exactly right. So let me go to the second part of your question, which is, does this matter? And I think the answer is no, because there's a threshold question that just makes all of this irrelevant. And that is whether we should even be talking about the First Amendment here. Just focusing on the Mann Act, the counts of conviction. The Mann Act criminalizes transportation of individuals for the purpose of paying for a cookie jar. It does not criminalize filming the hanky-panky acts of any kind. It criminalizes transportation. As Ms. Shapiro just said, the actus reus is transportation. Transportation for paying for the cucumbers is obviously not pure speech. So the question is, then, is it symbolic speech? I think it's laid out in the papers, the test to determine whether something is symbolic speech or not is examining whether there's an intent to convey a message and whether that message is likely to be understood. That's the Spence case from the Supreme Court. And the conduct here, transporting individuals to engage in, lot lizard behavior that just cannot be understood to convey a message, much less a message that could be understood. So I think what that means is that there's no symbolic speech and O'Brien doesn't even apply. Looking at the facts in O'Brien, I think is helpful because in O'Brien, the law at issue there was related to the destruction of draft cards and the protected speech was burning the draft card. So in other words, the protected symbolic speech was the very act that violated the law. Here, the act that violated the law was the transportation, which is not protected symbolic speech. I would point your honor to, and then the judge says, so are you telling me that, let's say you had a movie producer who was making an adult film and he transports actors across state lines for the purpose of making an adult film where they will have, relations on camera for money. In that circumstance, are you saying the First Amendment is not implicated? Because I think that some of the cases that Ms. Shapiro has pointed to map that scenario. Ms. Slavic says, I think, Your Honor, it would be a closer call. I think the Roeder case from the 11th Circuit touches on those cases. The facts in this case are nowhere near the facts in Roeder. In Roeder, the defendant transported a woman across state lines for the purpose of paying for, relations, but also for the purpose of filming the movie. And the record in that case indicates that the defendant told the woman as he was transporting her across state lines, we'll be filming a movie. That is absolutely not the case here. The record certainly does not support that sort of inference. The record here supports that when the defendant transported the individuals across state lines, which is the moment that we need to look at for the Mann Act, he intended for those individuals to engage in prostitution, nothing more than that. And I think that's where Your Honor's question about was this filmed all the time, that is relevant because it is just not the case that the defendant was an amateur movie producer. That's not the case. And then the court says, right. So it's an as applied challenge to back up. You're not saying that there might never be a case where a Mann Act prosecution would raise First Amendment concerns. It's just not in this case. In this case, in contrast to Freeman or whatever, those other cases cited by the defense, there was a motive. A jury could easily find that the intent of the transportation was paying for, these relations. Ms. Slavic says, and in fact, that's what the jury found by convicting him on the Mann Act. Yes, that's right, Your Honor. The judge says, okay. She says, so I'd be happy to continue to explain why O'Brien does not apply. I can also happily go to your third question, which was about whether O'Brien applies or not. However, Your Honor would like to take it. The judge says, well, let's go to, I've heard you on why we never get to O'Brien. So why don't we move to O'Brien, and why in this context is the government's interest important and no more than essential to satisfy that interest? She says, yes, Your Honor. So the question of whether there is an important government interest, courts that have addressed laws regarding, paying for relations have uniformly concluded that there is substantial government interest in regulating paying for relations. I have not found any case to the contrary. One case to point Your Honor towards is Akara v. Cloud bookcase. That is a 1986 case. There's kind of 2 points on that case. First is, in that case, the Cloud Books case, the court declined to apply O'Brien, blah, blah, blah. All right, we're going to skim through this O'Brien stuff. Okay. So they're just basically making points about why this is paying for having sexual relations. There's another case in the line of this public decency law case line that I just mentioned, Barnes v. Glenn Theater, that effectively held the government's interest was the prevention of, not having clothes on in public places. And so the requirement that dancers wear pasties and G-strings, that was really the only way that could be accomplished. The only thing I'll note in addition to this case, I just raised this to go back to the Roeder. All right, let me try to get. All right. All right, so now this is Diddy's lawyer responding. All right, so the judge says, thank you. Ms. Shapiro, I'll let you respond on the First Amendment writ large, and specifically the question was about the O'Brien factors. but Miss Slavic started with the threshold question whether the First Amendment applies here at all. And so Miss Shapiro says, yeah, so let me start with that. First of all, I agree with Ms. Slavic that our argument was not that, and to be clear, this is Diddy's lawyers, by the way. She says, so let me start with that. First of all, I agree with Ms. Slavic that our argument was not that, and to be clear, was not that Mr. Combs always filmed, but that it was routinely filmed, and there was evidence that it was probably filmed the vast majority of the time. For example, Jane testified that Combs filmed hotel nights almost every time. And even though there are some examples on the government's charts where they didn't introduce videos or photos, that doesn't mean that those particular events were not photographed. It just means that either the data no longer was on the devices or the government chose not to introduce them. But the bigger point is that, in our view, we also think it doesn't matter whether he always filmed them or not. We have two different First Amendment arguments here, and I will point out the government has entirely ignored the second one. I'll talk about the first one, which they did brief the and discuss with Your Honor today, which is that he was a producer of amateur adult videos. But we have a second theory that he was a consumer of adult videos, which I'll get to in a minute. All right. So this is, like I said, where they're saying, listen, he wasn't paying for them to just be hunching. He was creating adult films, which is legal if you go through the proper channels. But anyways, they said, with respect to the producer element, I think it's well settled that this type of amateur adult films, whether it's live or recorded, is protected by the First Amendment. There was a lot of evidence in this case, some of which was greatly emphasized by the government during the trial and before the trial, about how highly choreographed these FOs and hotel nights were. The fact that there was mood lighting, there were costumes. Indeed, as the court will recall, both Miss Ventura and I believe Jane also testified to role playing. And Miss Ventura talked about in some of the early freak-offs wearing wigs and other costumes. So it's clear from cases like Freeman and whatever the other case is that where you have a person filming this type of thing, that is protected by the First Amendment. But we also have cases, including some cited by my colleague on the other side, like the Glenn case and many other cases about, strippers, dancing, and so forth. So that is protected, whether it's a live performance or not. Now, I want to talk a little bit about our point that Mr. Combs had a right to be a consumer, and there are many cases on this. The most recent case, which is cited in our papers, is the Free Speech Coalition v. Paxton case, which reaffirms that adults have a right to consume adult films, a First Amendment right. And here we have not just Mr. Combs, but his girlfriends were also watching the ones that were filmed. Jane even brought a TV so that they could watch movie nights together. And the government doesn't seem to have any response to that. I would point out, and then the judge interrupted and said, what does that have to do with the count of the conviction? The transportation was for the purpose of Miss Ventura and Jane and the male cucumbers to engage in doing the do. That is having sexual relations for hire. The mere fact that they videotaped those incidents and then may have consumed them later, how does that give a rise to a First Amendment issue? She says, well, and then the judge says, right, because just use the example of Freeman and the other case, right? In those two cases, there was no evidence that the courts made that very clear, that the purpose of the actual acts was for gratification of the person taking the video or the participants. Instead, the cases proceeded on the basis that the purpose was the filming And so then a First Amendment issue was brought to bear. But here the government is saying that this was a paying for it for hire. It was not performance for hire. And the jury couldn't easily determine that based on the facts in the record. Diddy's lawyer says, actually, in Freeman, there were alternative holdings, and the court was quite clear that even if the evidence supported the notion that the person during the filming had a motive of sexual gratification, that it would still be protected by the First Amendment. That explicitly stated in Freeman. So I don't think that's right. In addition, the point that I'm making about consumption doesn't even require it to be recorded film. So, for instance, OF came up in trial. My understanding is that with respect to OF, that it's often simply a live stream back and forth where two people are somebody's watching someone on a camera that is not recorded. It's just happening in real time. So it doesn't really even matter, but I'm just pointing out that I think if the intent included filming and watching later, that's part of the overall point here. The judge says, you're saying that any time someone pays for relations for them to pay for it is defeated by the participants recording and then viewing the acts at a later time. So the judge is basically saying, so in order for it not to be considered you paying for the cuckoo, which is illegal, all they have to do is record it and watch it later for it to be legal. That's what you're saying? That's basically what the judge is saying. And then she says, that's not what I'm saying, and that's not what the court would need to hold to agree with this point. The point is that there are two different rights at issue here. And one of them is the right to watch adult films, and that includes live films and not just the ones that are filmed. You might have a different case if we didn't have these highly orchestrated, highly choreographed performances involving what the government's witness called painting a sexy scene and so forth. So I think this argument is very particular with the specific facts of this case and the way in which the acts and activity was described by the government's own witnesses and as evidenced by the videos that are in evidence with respect to the court's third question. So obviously, for all those reasons, we think this is clearly expressive conduct protected by the First Amendment. We concede that where in O'Brien, but there is no important government interest, and indeed, DOJ policy itself confirms as much because DOJ policy for the last 75 years has been that the government does not prosecute Mann Act cases unless they involve purveyor, someone who's running a commercial business of exploiting workers. And then, a little bit after that policy was promulgated in 1953, the government then began to add emphasis on cases involving minors and other trafficking. But we don't have any of that here. What we're left with after the jury's verdict is simply a case in which we have to accept that that's what we're talking about in consenting adults, and there's no substantial or important government interest. And indeed, what some of the cases talk about in connection with why regulating this paying for lot lizards is a substantial interest is secondary effects. So, for instance, crime will go up in a neighborhood where there are massage parlors that are being used as houses of prostitution or like that sort of thing. And here you don't have that concern because what we're talking about is concerning in the privacy of a hotel room or someone's residence. So there are two cases that I wanted to emphasize to the court in this regard. The first one is Texas v. Johnson, which is cited in our briefs, and we understand that the case is strict scrutiny case, blah, blah. So basically, as I stated, they're trying to argue that he's just creating sexy scenes. He didn't really engage in prostitution. He just, made them do a scene. He filmed it and he watched it, so therefore he's not guilty. And they also argue that other motions that I read already. So I'm tired of reading this transcript at this point. This is page 42 of 53. So we got through quite a lot of it. But I think y'all get the gist of like what their arguments are. They're trying to say he didn't break the law. And what he's did is no different than somebody who is engaging with somebody on OnlyFans, or somebody who, you know, is creating adult films like the legal way. Like, they're saying he didn't break the law. And so they're trying to argue for this to be vacated, or for them to be a new trial to present this right, because they don't feel like they presented it with the right set of facts. All right? You said, question, who did he sell the tapes to? There was no evidence that he ever sold them. So he's basically saying that he recorded it so that they can watch it themselves. So it was like an amateur, like, home movie, basically. Like, you know how there are some people who have a boyfriend and they decide to film themselves doing a do? That's what he's kind of saying that this is the equivalent of, you know? But they're saying, listen, you orchestrated them to transfer on state lines, because he's charged with transporting them to do the act and orchestrating it that way. So they're saying, like, listen, whether you filmed it, didn't film it, you transported them across state lines to do hanky panky, and that's breaking the law, and you're guilty. And we already did a trial and found you guilty. So the judge basically said, all right, well, I'll make a ruling later. So that's kind of like some of the gist of that. Hopefully I read enough for you guys to understand kind of what his argument is. Hopefully the people who kind of are not bored with like court transcripts, kind of, y'all get it. All right. So let's move on. So let's go to some of the letters. Now, some of you guys wanted me to read some more of the jail letters. So let me pull that up. And give me 1 second. Let me go to the bathroom. Like, just bear with me, y'all. I'm going to go to the bathroom really quickly and then be right back to read through these letters. Now, this was uploaded by Megan Cuteness. So instead of me going through Pacer, downloading them, she just did like a Google Drive. So appreciate her for that. All right. So this right here is that. Hold on 1 second. Let me make sure the whole thing. What's missing on here? All right. All right, give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Let me see. Let's what do I put on in the meantime? Hold on 1 second. Maybe let me play something for y'all in the meantime. Let's see. Hit the like button if you guys have not already. Oh, let's go here. 17. Wednesday. I'll play this in the meantime. This is a video I did a few days ago. Y'all ain't really watch it, so let's take a commercial break real quick. Why can't I? Oh, I'm like, dang, why can't I get it up? All right, here we go. All right, watch this while I go tinkle real quick. Let me get Diddy off of here. All right, I'll be back. I'll be right back.
Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday. I went to work Monday. Right? Monday I went to work.
You get some coins to do your dirty work, and then when shit go down.
No, Tuesday. It was Tuesday. Tuesday I went to work. Came back home. My locks was changed.
That's how it always
Let
happens.
me show y'all the change lock.
They like these are the change locks, y'all. First of all, look at that.
How the fuck I did this? I don't know what I did. I did something. Okay.
Locks and change.
Change locks. How the fuck I did this? Fuck it. I'm turning the phone line because y'all, I came home. Look at this. They drilled through this because they thought this was a real lock. Keep it in mind, I know the people who did it don't live here. Because the people who live here know that these two locks ain't real. These two locks ain't real. That's for sure, baby. That's for sure. That ain't no real lock. That ain't no real lock. They clipped it. So dumb. Because they did it for nothing. They did the right one. I did this with this right here. But they switched this lock too. My key didn't work.
Share the video.
I was turned the fuck around. Because why the fuck my key not working? My record. I know you want to know who. To say to, I'm about to tell you. Please wait. I'm telling the story.
All right. Hey, what's up, everybody? Happy Friday to the Night Owls. Hopefully you guys are doing well. This is a video that was submitted by one of the Night Owls, so I thought, let's watch it together. It is, I guess, a guy who came home and he said that when he got home, his house was robbed and everything that he had in his house was taken out. And all of these bunk beds were spread all around his house. Now, let's listen to the story. I have a couple stories queued up to talk about today. Just kind of, just vibing, chilling, talking to y'all, hanging out with y'all for a little bit. And then, we'll just go from there. So let's watch this video together. And then you guys tell me what you guys think about it. All right.
Y'all, it's okay. This is my sister. Y'all, trees, no, wait, all right. Y'all, I came home. Now, why my key don't work? And my rent paid.
Yeah, I can hear
my bill is paid. My rent paid. I can make $6 if I want to. My rent paid. I went to the landlord. They picked up from me one time. My landlord was it's a Jewish realty company called.
All right, so that video is on my channel. I just had to play something for y'all while I had to go tinker real quick. And now I am back. All right, what was we doing next? Oh, going over the letters. All right, so these are the letters right here. Whose letter do y'all want me to read that I didn't read already? Some of y'all said y'all wanted me to read more letters. So the letters that I already read Kim Porter's best friend's letters. I already read Carisha's letter. I already read a few different letters. So which one do y'all want me to read? Do y'all want me to just read them in order until we get tired? Or what? What y'all want? What we doing? Or are y'all going to bed? Let me know. Let me know. All right, let's start with his mom. All right, so hold on. I'm trying to see what's the best way to read it. You said read Justin's letter? All right. I'll read his mom and then I'll go to Justin. All right, so this is exhibit number 1. It says, Dear Judge, Submarinian, my name is Janice Combs, and Sean Combs is my only child. I'm writing this letter to implore your honor to please have mercy on my son. Sean has always been a loving and caring son. On December 21st, I will be 85 years old. This separation for the past year while Sean has been incarcerated has been excruciatingly difficult and painful for me and his children. I would like to be able to spend the last few years of my life with my son, Sean. Unfortunately, my son has made some terrible mistakes in his life, which I know he recognizes. Sean was 2 years old when his father passed away, and I raised my son as a single mother. I was also caring for my elderly, ailing mother. I worked 3 jobs to provide for my son, a good education. It says I drove a bus from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. Then in the evening, I worked at the United Cerebral Palsy home caring for patients. I also worked on the weekends as a salesperson in a clothing store. When my son was 9 years old, tragedy struck the family again. We were informed that my brother had died of a overdose, leaving his 5-year-old daughter, Keisha, an orphan. My brother and my niece were only remaining family members at the time of his death. I suddenly found myself having to adopt my niece to prevent her from going into foster care. Despite all the traumatic experiences, Sean somehow managed to be a good student. He performed well in school and always promised to work hard to provide for me so that I would not have to work 3 jobs ever again. As a teenager, he worked as a newspaper delivery boy and helped other after school jobs to assist with the household expenses. Nothing was really easy for my son growing up. Even when he started making music, he faced rejection, and the clubs would not play his music. They just did not think he was good enough. This did not make um my son angry at the world. He kept going, never giving up until eventually his hard work paid off. He did become very successful. I have to say that I saw how success also came with a tremendous amount of responsibilities, which was sometimes overwhelming. Still, with that, my son managed to be present for his children, caring, loving, and making sure the children's needs were met, and instilling values in them. I also depend on Sean for emotional support. He always looked after my health and well being. This was crucial as I have no one else to care for me. 4 of his children lost their mother not too long ago. The kids, especially the boys, are still having a very difficult time dealing with the loss of their mother. The loss of their father has been devastating. I will never excuse any wrongdoing committed by Sean. I was always very strict with him growing up. I appeal to the kindness of your heart to allow my son be able to sit at dinner with his family, to allow him to raise his children, and to instilling them the need to be respectful, get an education, just be God's children with love in their hearts. Please allow my son to be present in his child's life, blah, blah, blah. She got health issues and stuff like that. All right, next is the adopted niece or sister. Y'all say y'all don't want to hear this one. Y'all want to hear Justin? Let me see, which number was Justin? 6. Let's go down to 6. Y'all funny. All right. Justin Combs. My name is Justin Combs, and I am the firstborn. My name is Justin Combs, and I am the firstborn son of Sean Combs. I write to you with both a heavy heart and a hopeful spirit because I want to share not just who my father is to me, but why his presence is so vital to our family's survival and healing. Since his absence, my life has felt incomplete. Each morning, I wake up praying it was just a nightmare. My father has been there for me every day of my life, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, and in the deepest sense of what it means to be a father. I know how rare that is. Growing up, many of my friends didn't have fathers around. They would often turn to my dad for guidance, comfort, and even discipline. And he opened his arms to them as if they were his own. To the world, he may be a superstar, but to me, he is my world. Only now, in his absence, do I fully realize how much my identity, strength, and faith in myself comes from him. One of the clearest memories I carry with me of him, standing on the sidelines of my football games, he wasn't just cheering from the stands, he was coaching me, challenging me, and most importantly, believing in me. When I wanted to quit after a tough practice, he'd sit with me, put his arms around me, and remind me that greatness is earned through patience and persistence. I can still hear him saying, "You're stronger than you think, son." Those words carried me then and they carry me now. But just as powerful as those moments of strength were the softer ones. I remember being a little boy and my dad would sit on the edge of the bed at night reading to me until I fell asleep. Sometimes he'd make up his own stories, always with lessons about courage, kindness, or family. Um, woven in. And even as tired as he was from work, he never let me feel alone at the end of the day. Those quiet nights hearing his voice tell me I was safe and loved, our memories will carry for the rest of my life. That was my dad at his core, gentle, protective, and always making sure his children knew how deeply they were loved. When my football career ended, I went into a deep depression. I felt like I failed, and the weight of the public expectation crushed me. I was lost, and I carried a darkness I couldn't shake. My father, despite fighting battles of his own, reached into my pain and pulled me back into the light. He gave me his time when it was one thing he had so little of. He reminded me that I was worthy of love, forgiveness, and grace. My father saved me, and I say that with all honesty in my heart. My dad is not perfect. I know he has made mistakes, and I do not deny that, but I refuse to let those mistakes erase the truth of who he is. A loving present father who is installed in me and my siblings the importance of respect, of honoring women, and of standing tall in the face of adversity. He is the anchor of our family, the one we look for guidance and reassurance. Right now, my sisters are especially vulnerable. They no longer have their mother, and without my dad, they lack the steady hand and protective love they need. I try to step in as their older brother, but nothing can replace the unique comfort of a father's presence. On top of that, my grandmother, who has recently endured brain surgery, longs for her son's support. We are a strong family, but our strength is rooted in him. Without him, the foundation feels like it's cracking. Your Honor, I believe my father still has so much more to give the world, but even more importantly, to give to his children. Every day that passes is time he cannot get back with us, time that my younger siblings desperately need in their formative years. His wisdom, his love, and even the lessons from his darkest moments can be a gift not just to our family, but to others who look up to him. I humbly ask you from the deepest part of my heart to see my father the way I do. Do not through headlines, but through the eyes of a son who loves and needs him. Please allow him to the chance to come home, to be a father to his children, to be the father his children desperately need, and to continue the work of becoming the man I know he's capable of being. My siblings and I cannot get back this lost time, but we pray you will give us the gift of having our father back in our lives. We still have time with him. Thank you for hearing me and considering his letters. So for those of you guys who don't know which kid is which, let me show you a picture of which one is Justin. All right. So, let me see. Oh, it's not pulling up. Hold on. When I click on them, it goes out of frame. So hold on one second. But y'all see which one is Justin. The light one that is his mom is damn, what's his mom? She got a lawsuit against she got a lawsuit against Mary J. Blige. What's the hell is her name? But anyways, let me see. Y'all see which one it is, right? This one right here. This one right here. The one on the left. This is Justin. This one right here. This one right here. Hilton. Misa Hilton. That's his mama. This is mama right here. So this him and his mom to the right. All right. So the one that looks like him is Christian. Y'all want me to go to Christian's letter? This is Justin. This is the one whose letter I just read. Dang, all that time y'all wasn't seeing what I was clicking on. Child. I'm over here clicking away and y'all can't even see what I'm clicking on. All right, this him and his mom. This him. This him. This him. This him. All right, y'all get it. All right, moving on. Who next? Who next? You said, girl, what you doing up at 2? Girl, I've been up for longer than that. We 2 hours in, baby. Also, those of you guys who are watching this, remember to put the timestamps in the chat to help people know like when I got to certain points of the live. Okay, so okay, so the mama was first. Justin, Quincy. Y'all say Christian. Hold on. Okay, Christian is 22. All right, so this is Diddy's son that looks like him. So, so this is Kim Porter's son, and this is the one that looks like Diddy. All right, so this is this one that I'm about to read. All right, so let's get to it. Hold on, make sure y'all can see what I see. All right. Dear Judge, I'm asking you to please let my father out of jail. He does not deserve to be there, and I know this from the bottom of my heart. We have been through a year of lies and discrimination and dehumanization and loneliness and separation and extreme stress on the family. This is my dad, and he is the best father in the world. He has never ever taught me anything but to treat people with the most respect possible and to never be entitled and to always work for what I want and to treat people with love and kindness. Most importantly, he is the reason that I make music and the reason I am the person I am today. There was never a time my father wasn't there for me, and my father didn't make me feel special. I see why they put his all the way at the bottom. Okay? They said, listen, we're going to put this foolishness towards the end when the judge is already tired of reading the letters. Okay? We're going to put Justin at the top, you know, number 6. He reading through the letters, you know, he reading Mama Combs, this person. He said, we're going to put Christian number 22, because by then the judge probably tired of reading the letters at that point, child. So let us hit the judge with the family that hold him accountable and say that, you know, we don't condone his behavior, but we need him. We're going to put the one where they saying that my daddy was framed later. Okay. So anyways, He said, he has never ever taught me anything but to treat people with the most respect possible and to never be entitled and to always work for what I want and to treat people with love and kindness, most importantly. He is the reason that I make music and the reason I am the person I am today. There was never a time my father wasn't there for me, and my father didn't make me feel special. Every birthday, every holiday, child, where is the commas at? But anyways, I be writing run-on sentences too. So anyways, every birthday, every holiday, he would go above and beyond for me and for every accomplishment, and even days when I was feeling my lowest, he would pick me up and make me feel great. He is really the best father you could ever imagine, and I could put everything on that and go toe-to-toe with any son in the world, and I know for a fact they do not have an all-around better father than my dad is. No disrespect to you if you have kids, but I know my father is the best. What? You didn't need that line, sir. You already said. He was a good dad. Not you saying, Judge, you might be all right, but my daddy better. That's basically what he's saying. Like, Judge, like, you cool and all, but my dad a better dad than even you. He wrote this one. He was very angry. He was supposed to go to bed, sleep on it, write a little bit, wait till he wasn't angry, you know what I mean? And then come back where, all right, let me write this letter and I'm not so angry. He was writing this one. He was real mad. You know? He ain't put no punctuation in between nothing. He didn't even use Chat GPT. Now, out of all the letters that may have been constructed with Chat GPT, I don't think he used Chat GPT because he writing like he talk. Y'all know when I be putting stuff on my community wall and I just be writing like I talk, that's kind of what he doing. He just talking it out. Like he ain't, okay, let me read through. Let me make sure, child, let me just say what I got to say and get it off my chest. And that's that. Period. So anyways, where was I at? He said, he make me feel special and he, no disrespect to you if you have kids, but I know my father is the best. And for me and my sisters and brothers, him not being here is life-changing and is affecting our lives in the worst ways possible in every area. Please let my father out of prison. He does not deserve to be there and has already been in jail for a year. This has been the worst year anyone could ever go through. Please let him out. This is driving me crazy and my family crazy. I'm asking for grace and compassion to the family. Please let my dad out of jail. I have seen my dad help thousands of people, give back millions of dollars, and show love to everyone, and never treat anyone foul. Well, sir, we seen him beating the brakes off Cassie on video. But anyways, please let my dad out of jail. Me and my sisters and brothers don't have a mom. With my dad still in jail, it feels like I have no one at all. And it really is a scary feeling that I can't take. Please, please don't make this feeling a reality. I would not be able to handle that at all. Please, God, please, Judge, please let my father out of jail. Thank you so much. Yeah. They got too much money and too many handlers and all that for him not to have nobody proofread this and say, you know what, we might want to say it like this. And we might want to, delete this. He didn't have nobody proofread it. They got all them people on the payroll. Then nobody say, then nobody read it over. He got, child, please. Or maybe they did offer. And he said, this is what is on my heart. And said, F it. Maybe that too. I don't know. But this letter is a mess. All right, who we going to next? Let's go back up to... what's the twins' names? I don't even know their names. Girl, let me see. What is Diddy twin daughter's names? Oh, Delilah and Jesse. Okay, let's go to they letters next. All right, where Delilah at? Did I pass it? Wait, let me go back up. Oh, Exhibit 14. They wrote a combined letter. All right, so this is the twin. So as you guys know, he has these twin daughters, and it looks like they wrote a combined twin letter. All right, so they wrote a combined letter. Dear Your Honor, we are writing this letter to you as Delilah and Jesse Combs, the daughters of Sean Combs. We are 18-year-old young women that freshly graduated high school. Our lives have been like no others. On November 15, 2018, our lives changed in the biggest way. That was the day we lost our mother. She was everything to us and the most amazing mom we could ever ask for. Since the day Sean Combs, our father, has stepped up and has had to play the role of both parents in our lives, it was a very hard adjustment, but our dad has done everything he could to make it as easy as possible for us. He's shown up to everything to support us no matter what. He has taught us how to become great young women as we grow into adults. He has given us advice as we chase our dreams and goals. He has nurtured us. The list goes on. He has always been nothing but the best father to us and all of our siblings. On September 16, 2024, our world shattered. That was I guess they meant that was the day our dad was arrested and sent to jail. On that day, it felt like we had lost everything. Ever since then, we have forced to navigate our lives during an extremely hard and overwhelming time without parents. No mom or dad to go to when we're sad, happy, excited, nervous, stressed, lonely, anxious, overwhelmed, or depressed. This world can be a very evil place, and when people try to tear you down sometimes, you need a mom or dad to go to for love and support, which we don't have. We have gone through such important and challenging times in our lives, such as becoming seniors in high school, starting our new business, cheering at our school's football and basketball games, graduating high school, and passing our great grandmother, who was our mom's grandmother. And the passing of our great grandmother, who was their mother's grandmother. So many more tough times, all without our parents. But our dad has tried his best to make us feel still loved and supported through it all. Even though he hasn't been physically with us, he's still been the best father he can be. He has tried his best to still try to communicate and check on all his kids despite the conditions he's in, because he truly does love and care for all his kids and family. Aside from being our dad, he is such an inspiring person. We always want the best for people and allows people to chase their passions and dreams through his advice and teachings. He continuously provides positive impacts on people's lives. We haven't been on this earth for very long, but we can tell you ever since we can remember that the amazing memories with our dad has never failed to be an incredible father to us. He has always taught us to be kind to people because you never know what they're going through. He has also taught us to always give back to our community. On certain holidays, he would take us out to the less fortunate areas of wherever we were and give back. For instance, one Christmas, we went out to the neighborhoods in Miami that were less fortunate and gave them money to take care of whatever they were in need of. Another time on Thanksgiving, we volunteered at a shelter and gave out food to the less fortunate that didn't get to have a Thanksgiving meal that day. He has always just been such a caring and giving person, and he has taught us to be the same way. We are proud to be his daughters, and we're grateful. We're beyond grateful for the endless support, guidance, and love he has shown us throughout our entire lives. Our family has faced many challenges through the years, but no matter what, we continue to stick together through it all. We know who our father truly is, a caring, loving, generous, passionate, and dedicated man. Words can't explain how much we miss him, and we hope that you deeply consider returning him home to us. Thank you for your time. With love, Delilah and Jesse Combs. All right. Um, who else? Who we going to next? I didn't read Stevie J's letter. Let's read that. He is. The hell is Stevie J? It was one of the ones towards the bottom. Oh, Exhibit 62. Child, it's almost 3 a.m., honey, and it is showing. All right, here's Exhibit 62. Child, not they done put a picture. All right, this is Stevie J. So y'all know who Stevie J is from Love and Hip Hop, right? And while I read, you said, can you read Jay-Z and Beyonce letter? I don't think they wrote a letter. I don't think Jay-Z and Beyonce wrote no letter, honey. All right, so this is Stevie J. It says, Dear Your Honor, my name is Stevie J. I'm a 3-time Grammy Award-winning music producer from Buffalo, New York, where I was the youngest of 6 siblings raised by a single father. I've known Mr. Combs for 29 and a half years, and we met in a recording studio, and he has changed my life ever since. Coming from having little to nothing, Mr. Combs gave me an opportunity to produce songs for the music industry's elite artists: the Jackson 5, Sting, Mariah Carey, Boyz II Men, Notorious B.I.G., Jay-Z, Beyonce, New Edition, and the list goes on. That opportunity was instrumental in changing my lifestyle and providing me with the golden chance of making history by 3 number one songs on the charts from June 14th through September 27th, 1997. Aside from being influential in my music career, Mr. Combs is a dedicated son to his beautiful mother and a loving father to his 7 well-mannered children. I'm saying these words because I know them to be true, because I have front row to witness him through the many years of our brotherhood. From being present to all of his children's sports events, birthdays, and graduations, to watching him displaying parental guidance and support to them, he's the most vibrant and happy spending time with his mom and children. I've honestly been a spectator to these beautiful moments in life. My father was my best friend, and when passed away 2 years ago, without asking Mr. Combs for a dime, he nearly paid the expenses for the funeral, and that speaks volumes for the type of heart that he possesses. Being in this entertainment business for 30 years and being friends with Sean, we've both endured personal challenges with anger and rugs, as I've been going to therapy and taking all the necessary precautions never to look back at addiction again. I'm proud of Sean. I've read the press that he's clean and sober, and also taken anger management therapy to become a better person, because we all fall short as long as we correct ourselves and never revert to our old ways. Your Honor, as I end this letter, I'd like to thank you for doing an excellent service on this case, and I'd like to request leniency as you make your decision because his mom, children, and his friends truly miss him. All the best, Stevie J. All right. Who's else do we want to read? I'll probably read like 2 more, and then we'll go about our day. Which ones y'all want me to read? Which ones y'all want me to read next? I don't know about the Kane case, they only. Which one we read next? Y'all want me to go through the list of who wrote? Who wrote? I wrote it down on a piece of paper. Oh, here we go. Ugh. All right, I'm gonna tell you who these people are, and then you guys tell me who y'all want to hear from next. I'm gonna read maybe like a couple more. Chance, you said I just got here. All right, I'll throw in a couple extra. All right, so y'all said y'all want me to read Chance, but in the meantime, let me know who you guys want me to read next. Let me read through who each person is and stuff like that. So I already read Kim Porter's best friend's letters, but Exhibit 5, LaWanda. Let's go up. All right. So Exhibit 1 is his mom. Exhibit 2 is, I guess, his cousin that his mama adopted. Exhibit 3 is Dallas Austin, who used to date Chili, songwriter, producer, all that. Exhibit 4, I don't know who that is. Exhibit 5, LaWanda Lane. She is one of Kim Porter's friends. Exhibit 9, Normandi Keith. She is some model in It Girl. Exhibit 10, Ebony Electra is Kim Porter's best friend. She's a best friend to Kim Porter and to Diddy. Exhibit 11, Marsha Irving. She's Kim Porter's close friend. 15 is a girl by the name of Nicole Oliveira. She's romantically linked to him in 2019. 16, Derek Osorio. He is a record executive for Uptown Music. Kim Etheridge is the owner of the brand Mixed Chicks. We had a fun time reading through her letter, child. I'm not gonna reread hers. You can catch that one on the other one because we had fun with that one. All right, Exhibit 18, Carla Limos. She was a chef. 19, Dana Tran is Diddy's baby mama. 23 is a wardrobe stylist. 24 is Roger Romaine. He is executive producer. 25, Hadmira Leacock is one of Young Jock's side pieces that he was hunching on the side. And she also went on to Love and Hip Hop as well. She made an appearance on Love and Hip Hop Atlanta as one of Young Jock's side pieces. 26, Jamil Spencer is an award-winning brand builder, so he helps the elites build their brands, and he's built brands for Diddy, Shaq, Jay-Z, Pharrell, and I think Justin Timberlake. Shara Chapman is Diddy's baby mama to his daughter Chance. That's Exhibit 27. Stephen Dent is Diddy's managing director and chief engineer. Trevin Jones is the MMA fighter. We ain't reading through all these. We gonna pick a couple that y'all feel like, I want to hear from that person. Claudine De Niro is the ex-wife of Robert De Niro's son, and she was a jump off to Cuba Gooding Jr. Ariel Malone is a chef. This is Exhibit 33. She is a chef on that she won season 15 of Hell's Kitchen. Exhibit 34, Shay Amalbi is a real estate person in Miami. Exhibit 35, we already read through that. That's Carisha's letter. But you know what? I'm going to read Carisha's letter over so that I can make like a separate video. Exhibit 36, Christopher Hicks is a record executive. 37, Jeff Burrows is a vice president executive of Bad Boy Records. Robert Celestins, 38, is a music exec for Uptown. Terry Haskins is an interior designer for Diddy. Vastra is the vice president of human resources for Bad Boy Entertainment. That's 40. 42 is LaShawn Owens, a 3-time Grammy-winning producer. 43 is a songwriter. 44 is the former manager of Lil' Kim. So Hillary Weston used to manage Lil' Kim. Stephen Hill's the actor. Neil Dominique is the A&R. Brittany Hall is an actress. So I'm going to start off with Chance, his daughter, and then we'll go from there. All right, 13 is Chance. So if you guys don't know which daughter is Chance, she's the daughter of what's the name? Sarah. And if you guys don't know what she looks like, let's type her in. So she's this daughter right here. For those of you guys who... she's this one right here. Okay. She's the one with the striped shirt with the twin. And she is right here. And she's always like in a trio with the twins. All right. So they put her in the middle of the twins when they make appearances. But they got different mamas, obviously. All right. So now let me go to her letter. All right. Hold on one second. Okay, let me make sure y'all see exactly what I see. Okay, boom. All right. She's the love child. I read Ebony's letter, child. That was like a book, honey. Ebony's letter is the one that was like 4 pages, 5 pages. She did a bibliography. We already read that one, child. We read that one on another live, honey. I believe that's the one, child. She wrote a whole book, honey. We already read Ebony on another live, baby. So I'm trying to go over the ones that I didn't read already. Because like I said, we had another live where we read through these letters. All right. So, dear Judge Summeranian, my name is Chance Combe, Sean's oldest daughter. I'm writing this letter on behalf of my father. I'm asking you from the bottom of my heart to consider him returning home to our family in October. My dad has always been our foundation. He's not only a hardworking businessman, but he's also the one who makes sure that we're cared for and supported. He takes care of my grandmother, his elderly mother, and he's always been there for us, no matter what. We've missed so much over the past year with him and can't imagine him missing any more milestones in our lives. Growing up, my father taught me the importance of hard work, honesty, responsibility, and giving back. He's instilled in me what it is to be dedicated to your passion and work hard for everything in life. I've seen him help people in our community, give his time and energy without asking for anything in return, and work hard every day to support those he loves. This situation has been really hard on all of us. It doesn't feel right at home without him here. We miss him every day, and I know how much he wants to be with us and face this situation responsibly. Some of my siblings do not have their mother and are now missing a father figure in their lives. We miss him deeply and need his presence, especially now. I understand the seriousness of what's happening, but I also know my father, he just needs the opportunity to come home, be with his family, and prepare for what's ahead and handle his legal matters. Please take this letter as my honest and heartfelt request to have him return home to us. It would be a blessing to have him home for the holidays. We need our dad home, and I truly believe that giving him this chance will make a difference for all of us. Thank you for taking the time to read this letter. Our family needs him, and we are ready to support him every step of the way. All right. That is Chance. Who we going to next? Y'all want to hear from her mama or who else? Child, Ebony wrote a book, honey. She wrote a lot. She wrote a lot, honey. I was like, girl, it's giving, girl. She went back to when they was kids, they mamas and they daddies was friends, and then they became friend cousins, and then he was there for her, and he was there for other people, and he gave for other people, and he gave for her, and she had him in her back pocket, but then she wasn't a yes man, and she could always check him if he needed to be checked, because, you know, people didn't really check him, so she was the one to check him. Child, we read through hers, honey. She said a lot. Who we going to next? Y'all said read Quincy's. Okay, we'll go to Quincy. What number is he? She said a lot. I was like, girl, it's given. I'm on his payroll and I want to write his autobiography or something. Like, it was a lot. Let me see which numbers Quincy. I don't have the ones that I knew who they were. I didn't write them down. All right, Quincy is number 7. All right, Quincy is the child that's not his biologically. It is Albie Shure's son and Kim Porter's son, but it's the one that he raised as his own and the one that he did the Sweet 16 for. All right. So this one right here is Quincy. For those of you guys who, you know, need to visually see who's who. He is Kim Porter's son, not biologically attached to Diddy, but Diddy took care of him, and his biological father is Albie Shure. All right. So let's read through his letter. Dear Judge Submarinian, my name is Quincy Brown, and I am the son of Kimberly Antoinette Porter and stepson of Mr. Sean Combs. My biological father is Albert Joseph Brown III. I call my stepfather Pops when referring to him, so I will do the same in this letter to you. I was around 4 years old when my Pops came into my life, and he has been the only father figure in my life for as long as I can remember. He stepped in and stepped up as a father at an important time in my life, during my most formative years, in a way that no one else could have. He poured his love into me in a way that I couldn't quite recognize as a child. A love that I'd only received from women in my life. It was unconditional, safe, and unwavering. It still is. He put me first. He went out of his way at any and every opportunity without hesitation to make me feel like he'd been there the whole time. Having never experienced the love of a father before then, it was all so foreign to me. I didn't know that I was the recipient of a man's love. That is until I began to witness the love that he had for my mother. It was tremendous and true. The love they shared brought new blessings that he had for my mother. I became a big brother to my brother Christian. and my twin sisters, Jessie and Delilah. The birth of my siblings changed the lives of my mom and pops and myself in the most beautiful way. I love my younger siblings more than life itself, and in the absence of our parents, I've tried my best to step up for them in the same way my pops stepped up for me. Our mom passed away in November 2018. Losing her was the hardest thing my siblings and I have ever dealt with. I think it was the hardest thing my pops has ever dealt with too. Unexpectedly, he'd become the only person we could turn to. He became our rock. Losing her sent all of us into a dark place. After striving every single day to make her proud, her passing left our world in shambles, left us unsure of what to do, and left us questioning what life ahead would be like. My pops, as he always done for his children, stepped up and made it a priority to be present with us at the time when he didn't even know how to be there for himself. Having to be present with, oh wait, having to say goodbye to our mother brought us closer in ways that only grief could. Though our loss was felt deeply, we learned of our family's strength during the most difficult times of our lives. Following my mother's passing, my pops further strengthened our bond when he asked me to help with raising my sisters. It was in that moment that he instilled his trust in me and reminded me of our special connection as father and son. My sisters were entering their teenage years that were sure to be challenging without our mom. He truly didn't know what to do and struggled to fill the role that only a mother could. But he tried his best and he asked me to help. He wanted and was willing to learn about what it's like for the younger generation. Child, Quincy done wrote a book too. Okay. I haven't read Quincy's yet, but you can see the maturity level between which kid wrote what. We can see that Christian's maturity level is a different place. It's the representation of being Diddy's clone. Okay. Anyways, it says he wanted to know how to connect with my siblings as they enter crucial moments in their lives. Though it could never be fully achieved, he wanted to minimize the pain and suffering that his teenage girls would feel without their mother. When work took him away from home, he leaned on me to step up. He called for check-ins daily, more than we'd ever spoken on the phone before, simply because he wanted to become a better dad. He's always aimed to be the best dad that he can be. This is clear in the way my pop shows up for all my siblings, not just my mom's children. He made tremendous efforts to put family first, and he created families first traditions that we all look forward to. Unity can sometimes be a challenge for such a large family, but my pops achieves it well. The unity and family first mentality that we all have has been shaped by his leadership and love. It's the type of leadership and love that every family needs. My pops isn't a perfect man, but he is dedicated. He is a dedicated father with a heart that we're lucky to know. He loves his children and would do anything for us. We're the ones that can help him heal and grow best. We're the ones that can help him learn from his mistakes. And we're the ones that can help him face whatever struggles he may encounter in his personal life. My siblings and I would like to welcome my pops home immediately so that we can help him as he continues to work on his struggles and heal in a private setting, following all that has been shared publicly with the world beyond the unconditional love and support he has provided to my siblings and I during our lifetime. My pops has always empowered us to become who we want to be. Now we'd like to support and inspire him to become who he'd like to be in his next chapter of life. He needs us just as much as we need him. I think out of all of the kids, he wrote the best letter to me, to be honest. And he should have helped Christian write his tyrant of a rant. Okay? He should have helped his brother write his thing, because he was a mess, child. A mess. All right, who else we reading? We'll read a couple more. and then we'll be done. Let me see. Who else y'all want to hear from? Let's hear from the new baby mama, Dana Tran. Let's go to the new baby mama. She is number 19. Let's go to 19. I think Justin's was good. The twins, theirs was all right. Christian's was crazy. Justin and Quincy's, theirs were the best. The Ebony girl, like, she wrote a lot of background, but it sounded more like a book rather than a character letter. But I mean, she said some good stuff too, but it kind of felt like from a self-centered place. If you guys were on my other live when I read that letter, that it was like, I put him in check, and it was kind of like, girl, this is about him, not you. But anyways, oh child, we have fun with this one. Okay, this is Dana Tran. So this is the mom of his youngest child. All right, so this is Dana Tran. All right, so this is the baby mama of the youngest child that he has. Okay, of his youngest baby. This that baby mama. So let's read what she has to say. Dear Judge Submarinian, I am writing to you regarding Sean Combs, with whom I share a 2-year-old daughter, blank Combs. I respectfully ask you to consider this letter as a testament to his character and the importance of his presence in our child's life. Although I understand and respect the seriousness of the legal process, I have personally witnessed Sean as a concerned and attentive father. From the earliest days of our daughter's life, he has shown her deep care, affection, and commitment. His bond with her is genuine and irreplaceable. Our daughter, blank, is at a critical stage of development where having both parents involved provides much needed stability, especially emotional stability. I have tried to keep her life as normal as possible, but the absence of her father has taken a noticeable toll. Girl, she too. But hey, maybe she's noticeably different. Blank is bright and curious, and she often becomes frustrated that she cannot see her daddy. She asks many questions about why she cannot be with him or why she can only see him under his circumstances. When she hears his voice, she lights up. It's clear how important he is to her sense of safety, happiness, and belonging. I do not seek to excuse past mistakes, but I wholeheartedly believe that allowing Sean the chance to be present for his child will not only strengthen their bond, but also inspire him to continue making positive choices for the future. His role as a father gives him a powerful reason to change, grow, and live responsibly. The way he spends his time going forward and the legacy he leaves are the things children will carry them for the rest of their lives. I write this letter on behalf of our daughter to express that there is no hidden agenda. Sean's only wish is to learn from this experience and return home to his family. He has already missed important milestones in the lives of his older children, and I humbly ask that he not miss any more. Sean is deeply committed to being present for blank and his other children. He will not jeopardize that chance. He simply wants to grow old with his family. I respectfully ask the court to show compassion and allow Sean the opportunity to be an active father in our daughter's life. I trust in the court's wisdom and judgment, and I will respect whatever decision is made, but I hope my words help convey just how meaningful his presence is to our child's growth and well-being. Thank you very much for your time and consideration. So that was the baby daddy to the last child. All right, who gonna be the last one? Oh, let me read over Carisha's again. Let me read over Dear Joanna. My name is Young Miami. No, my name is Carisha Brownlee. Let me read over hers again. But we read through this one already. All right. So this is Young Miami. Those of you guys who don't know who Young Miami is, this is her. All right. So one of the things that she's going to talk about is the fact that Diddy was able to take her to her first Met Gala, and he was able to show her that she's important, and he was able to build up a brand with her. All right. So that's Young Miami from the City Girls. And this is the Met Gala that she's going to refer to in the letter. All right. She said, Your Honor, he brought me up out the hood and made it all good. Dear Your Honor, my name is Carisha Brownlee. I'm a mother, daughter, sister, and a hip-hop artist who has spent many years in the public eye. I want to be clear that I cannot speak on or defend anything that may have happened before I met Sean Combs. I do not condone any wrongdoing. I can only speak, or maybe I should do it in her voice. How she talk? I do not condone any. She talk like she kind of like plugging her nose a little bit. I do not condone any wrongdoing. I can only speak from my personal experience and the man I've come to know over the past 4 years. She talks some kind of way. I don't know if it sounds like her nose is some kind of way she talk different. I can't get it right now. It's 3 a.m. in the morning. Y'all. So we gonna go back to the other one. I do not condone any wrongdoing. I can only speak from my personal experience and the man I've come to know over the past 4 years. For 3 of those years, I was in a public relationship with Sean. And during that time, I witnessed and came to know a different person that one often portrayed. Behind the scenes, he was loving, genuine, supportive, and always encouraging. He motivated me, believed in me, and helped me grow both personally and professionally. I'm writing this letter because I believe it's important for the court to know the side of Sean that isn't always seen or spoken about. The man who poured into others, who gave opportunities, who led by example, and who loved deeply. He helped shape me both professionally and personally. He believed in me, pushed me to grow, and taught me how to be a better businesswoman. He helped me find balance between chasing my dreams and being present for my family, because that's what he did. No matter how busy he was, he never missed holidays or special moments with his family. One of my most meaningful memories was when he took me to my first Met Gala. It wasn't just about the event. It was about what it represented. Sean has always made it a priority to open doors for Black people, to make sure we are seen, heard, and valued in spaces where we historically have been excluded. That night reminded me that we belong in every room, at every table, and every conversation. He constantly encouraged me and so many others to dream bigger, walk in confidence, and never shrink who we are to make others comfortable. He always gave me a voice by providing me a platform on his network to speak for the culture and connect with people in a way that was real and authentic. That opportunity changed the direction of my career and showed me the impact one person can have when they choose to uplift others. Beyond all that, I've seen him give back to his community over and over. In 2022, we fed the homeless together on Thanksgiving, and that was just one example. There were so many moments when he gave quietly, privately, without cameras, because his heart genuinely wanted to help. I've also witnessed him doing real inner work. He made the choice to check himself into anger management, start therapy, and commit to physical healing through therapy that takes strength, humility, and self-awareness. He didn't do it for show. He did it because he wanted to grow and to become a better person. In my opinion, in my personal experience, Sean is not a danger or threat to the community. He is a man of God, someone who uplifts, supports, and inspires those around him to be better mentally, physically, and spiritually. But more than anything, he's a father and has kids are the ones who look up to him the most. They need him. His presence, love, and guidance matter deeply in their lives. I truly believe that he belongs at home with his family, the people who mean the most to him and who continue to be his greatest source of purpose and strength. Judge, that's a good man. Thank you, Carisha Brownlee. Okay. So that's what Carisha said. We could reread some of Kim Porter's friends' letters. I'll just keep on going until I get too tired, okay? It's getting late. It's getting late. Y'all know that's when I start acting real silly. All right, let's go to Kim Porter's friend LaWanda Lane. She is I think she stated in her letter that she moved in to help Diddy with the girls. I read this on a prior live, but to hell with it. Let's go through a couple more. Throw some more. Throw some more. All right, so let me do a little intro because I might make this a separate video. All right, so I'm going to read through a lot of, or no, scratch that. I'm going to read through some of the letters that Kim Porter's best friends wrote on behalf of Diddy. And a lot of them came from a place to where they were kind of like defending his character. Now, if you guys know anything about Kim Porter, Diddy, and her untimely demise, there was a lot of accusations that he was the sole reason that she was unalive. There was allegations that he was behind her death and so much more. So I think that because Kim Porter also came up throughout the trial, and they kind of alluded that she has some hotel nights too of her own, her friends kind of came to defend his honor and speak on their relationship. So we're going to start with her friend LaWanda Lane. Now, I remember seeing her at the trial, and she would come when Diddy Kids came. If you guys want to know who that is, let's type her up. All right, so this is her right here. And this is the next letter that we are going to read. All right. This is her and Kim Porter when they was young, etc. All right, so let's go and read her letter. She is Exhibit 5. All right. So her letter, oh, let me. All right. Dear Your Honor, hi, my name is LaWanda Lane. To the family, I go by the name Lala. Throughout my entire life, I have had experience in the music industry where I have gained some exposure in areas like production, artist development, and performance. For the past 4 years, I have taken the responsibility of helping Sean Combs take care of the kids. Before Kim's passing, I lived with her for almost 20 years. Girl, you ain't never had no house of your own, honey. You went from living with her to living with him. But anyway, she said, for the past 4 years, I have taken responsibility of helping Sean Combs take care of his kids. Before Kim's passing, I lived with her for almost 20 years. Since her passing, I have moved into Sean's house to assist with the kids as an auntie. I have known Mr. Combs for 32 years. I met him through my best friend, Kim Porter. The thing that I admire most about him is his drive, hard work, and the loyalty he has to his kids, mom, and close friends. I was amazed at how he could be working in the studio or be on set for a movie, at the office, and always be there for all his kids no matter what was going on. Before meeting Sean, Kim had a son named Quincy. Ever since Kim and Sean met, he has always taken care of Quincy like he was his own. I have never seen Mr. Combs fail to be there for Quincy. Quincy's biological dad hasn't paid a dime to help Quincy with anything. But Sean isn't like that. No matter if Quincy is his biological son or not, he doesn't even blink when it comes to helping Quincy out with things. When Kim passed away, he was gutted, devastated, and to say the least, extremely heartbroken. He lost his best friend and mother to four of his kids. He immediately became Mr. Mom and Dad. He made sure that all of his kids were with him and he did not leave their side. He also had to tell them that their mom passed, which was very difficult for him to do. Every day, Mr. Combs would always make sure the kids' mental health was good. He always made sure to show up for them in every way, even if it meant that he had to cancel meetings, a project, or even not go out of town. He did that. I come from a big family involved in civil rights, but ever since I've known Sean, he has always shown me what Black excellence was in a way I never saw within my family. Another thing I admire about Sean is his compassion. He will continuously give me advice about my passions. I remember one day he sat me down for 2 hours and told me everything I was doing wrong in my business and how to change it to make it work for me. I learned a wise lesson that less is best. Be private and be intentional in all I do. When I say Black excellence, I mean I could do anything great around the world. For example, Sean was the first Black man to have a cologne for men that was selling close to 1 million bottles a week. The company Estee Lauder rented a yacht in Europe to shoot a huge campaign for the fragrance, with the budget being several $1,000,000. I have never seen anything like that been done by a Black man before until Sean did it. He also made history in the fashion world. He had the first of all Black men's fashion show in New York Fashion Week. Also, with a multi-million-dollar company he built from the ground up, Sean John. To this day, I have still not seen that happen again. That is the huge part of Black excellence to me. Girl, well, what about FUBU and Rockaware and Baby Fat and what was Russell Simmons? Was his Rockaware was Jay-Z. What was Russell Simmons? I can't think. But anyways, y'all get the gist. But anyway, she said, I ain't never seen that before. There have been many great family moments I have experienced with Sean and Kim. When Kim's mom became very sick, child, we had a kiki on this one. Child, she was so moved by this action, honey. She said, there have been many great family moments I have experienced with Sean and Kim. When Kim's mom became very sick, the doctors told her she had a year left to live. During that time, I personally watched Sean make phone calls to get the best doctors for Mima, which added a year to her life, and for Kim to have her mom a little longer. Now, we not talk about that part. We're going to keep on reading. So when I say he was compassionate, that's what I meant. He would always put other people's challenges first and do whatever he could to make it better. I've seen Sean go through so much throughout our friendship. I've seen his good days and his bad days, but no matter what challenges he faces, he always kept a positive spirit and always did what he could to work through his struggles. Throughout everything in his life, one thing that has stayed consistent is his commitment for all his children. Oh no, she ain't the one that said the cotton swab. That must have been Ebony. Never mind. This ain't the one I was talking about. I read through these letters on a separate live. I just mixed hers up with another one, child, because the other lady said he had the whiskey and the cotton swab, and he was swabbing the mama mouth with the liquor. Fat Farm. There we go. Thank you. I couldn't think. I'm like, one baby fat and the other one is, I couldn't think. Thank you for letting me know. All right, so no. So I mixed hers up. Child, they said when one of Kim Porter's friends, not this one, I thought this was the one. One of Kim Porter's friends said when Kim Porter mama was on her deathbed and she was about to take her last breath, Diddy came in with a Q-tip and her favorite whiskey. And he came to the bedside as she's about to take her last breath. And because she loved this whiskey so much, she would get litty off this whiskey. She said that he came to the bedside. She's about to pass away and take her last breath. And he came in. He swabbed the Q-tip in the alcohol and swabbed it around her mouth. And they just were so overwhelmed with emotion. And they were sad and all of this. Child, we read through that on another live, honey. I think that was Ebony because Ebony the one that wrote a book, child. She wrote so much different stuff. I can't even keep up. Let's go to Marsha Irvin. I'm not going to read over Ebony's because, again, hers was long. Okay? Hers was long, but I believe hers is the one that consists of that story where she say, child, he came in with the Q-tip and, oh, he's so giving because he flew to mama on a private jet and, child, she said all kind of stuff. Let's go to, and on the I'm gonna upload this separately and I'll just input where I read that. Okay, if y'all didn't catch it, I'll try to make a separate video of the best friends and I'll just, copy and paste that part of my live into this one because, child, we had a time reading that. Let's see. All right, let's see what one of his jump offs had to say. Number 15, Nicole Olivero. She was romantically linked to him in 2019. Let me see what one of his jump offs got to say. Okay. So this is Nicole Olivera. Let me show you guys her. All right, so this is Nicole Olivera, and she was one of his little pieces, one of his little things. Let's read what she got to say. All right, so it says, my name is Nicole Olivera. I'm a mother. Wait, one of the things popped up and said Nicole Olivera baby daddy. Who her baby daddy? Who this is? Who this man? I don't know who this is. Charles Dubernex? I don't know. Anyways. All right, let's move on. I don't know who her baby daddy is. But he looked like he probably a ball player or whatever. All right, so anyways, it says, Dear Your Honor, my name is Nicole Olivera. I am a mother and I currently work as a broker and account executive in the private aviation industry. However, this is not how I came to know Mr. Sean Combs, nor do we have a business relationship. I have known Sean very closely for the past 12 to 13 years. We met in 2012 through mutual friends and quickly became almost inseparable for many years. Our connection developed in a personal, family-oriented setting. As someone with 6 younger brothers and a naturally nurturing disposition, I became a trusted go-to babysitter and family friend. He was inseparable with the babysitter. She said, Sean and I both relocated to Los Angeles around the same time. him from New York and Miami, and myself from my hometown, Miami. Around that time, Sean was also bringing his children together under one roof. His twin daughters were moving from Georgia, and his son Justin from New York to attend UCLA. He was working to reunite his family, to be present for his children in a new way, and I witnessed firsthand the importance he placed on that. At the time, I was in my 20s, 19 years younger than Sean. And while some might compare this to other relationships that have come to light, my experience is fundamentally different. I have known the man Sean is inside his home. Girl, we didn't need to know y'all was 20-year age difference. What that mean? Like why do we care that you 20 years younger? That's just gonna make us look at him like you was humping on the babysitter. You know? That's kind of what that's giving. Like you done hired her to help with the kids, and you done slipped her some cucumber while she on babysitter duty. I guess that's another one of his scenes. But anyway, she said, at the time I was in my 20s, 19 years younger than Sean. And while some might compare this to other relationships that have come to light, my experience is fundamentally different. I have known the man Sean is inside, girl. She put that in bold letters. Inside his home, with his family. I've seen the devoted father who lights up at the sight of his children. The man who works tirelessly to create a beautiful life for them. I've experienced him as the man who asks for photos and videos and so many FaceTime calls when he was away for work because he missed them so much. I've seen him build up the people around him, myself included. He uplifted me, gave me confidence, and helped me recognize my own strength at the time in my life when I needed that kind of a belief. I consider myself blessed to be an extended part of Sean's incredibly loving family. Well, she's listed as being romantically linked to him on Google. But anyways, I consider myself blessed to be an extended part of Sean's incredibly loving family. Over the years, I've grown closest to his twin daughters, Jessie and Delilah. Before their mom, Kim Porter, passed, I had the privilege of spending time with her as well. Well, why they saying you was bumping uglies with Sean on Google? You up in Kim's face? Why they saying you was hunching him on Google? Anyway, she said before their mother, Kim Porter, passed, I had the privilege of spending time with her as well. From an insider's perspective, I can honestly say Kim was a powerful light, someone whose presence could be felt before she even spoke. Sean especially lit up around her. She was the person he loved and respected most. Losing Kim changed Sean. I saw the transition. The man I had always known spiraling into a deep grief that impacted him profoundly. I share this not to excuse, but to help explain the very real emotion decline I witnessed. As I mentioned, I was closest with the children, and I was never exposed to the drug use or even alcohol within the home. I was the only woman other than their mothers who was allowed around the children. I never fully understood why at the time, but looking back, I now realize he made a conscious effort to protect his family from parts of his life he didn't want to affect them. I was unaware of the nature of his relationship with Cassie or the issues that have since come to light, and that separation now makes more sense. Your Honor, I do ask that you consider the fuller picture of who Sean is and has been to many of us. He is a deeply loving father, a provider, and someone who has poured so much on himself into the lives of those around him. I hope my words offer you a glimpse into the man behind the headlines, the man I know and care for. All right. So if you type in who is Nicole Oliveira to Diddy on Google, it will say that she was reportedly his love interest. Just so y'all know, I didn't make that up. You know, I Googled all these people. All right. I Googled all these people to see who they was and what they was. So as you see right here, it says Nicole Oliveira was reportedly Diddy's love interest in the late 2019 after he was seen with her following a reported split from Lori Harvey. Oliveira, who is also known as an actress and attended the premiere movie of The Gemini Man with Diddy, spoke out to deny any romantic or sexual involvement with Diddy's son, Justin Combs, and clarified that her relationship with Justin Combs was not romantic. All right. So, that's what it say on here, and she only denied being involved with Diddy's son. Okay. So that's what that say. And this is an article on BET.com about her. It says Diddy's rumored new love interest speaks out about their relationship, and she says, Lori who? All right. And all right, and this is child, we got this a post on the Shade Room. So, child, girl, she was hunching on Diddy because she clearly specified that she didn't mess with the son. But on here, she says, she was spotted with Diddy and she says, he's single, I'm single, we're friends. I'd never be involved with a son and then his father or vice versa. And this is her together with Diddy. It says the two sparked dating rumors as well as breakup rumors between Diddy and Lori Harvey when they photographed arriving to a late night dinner together at Nobu. Well, as far as Lori and Diddy go, it's safe to say they are no longer a thing, as Nicole claims that both she and Diddy are single. He's single, I'm single, we're friends. Okay. She says some have speculated that she and Justin Combs may have had a relationship of their own based on their interaction, but she shut that down real quick, saying that she wouldn't go between a father and son. Okay. So yeah, that's her done smiled up in Kim's face and all with the kids and everything. Child, a mess. Are y'all still awake or shower? Is it time for us to go to bed? Let me see if y'all are still here with me. Or am I talking to myself? Oh, y'all still up? I mean, say hi in the chat or something. Like, y'all ain't saying nothing. I'm like, it's a lot of y'all in here and the chat ain't moving. All right. All right, we'll read one more and then I'll go. These letters be having tea in them. Let me see what Young Jock side piece had to say. All right, so one of, like I said, one of Young Jock's side pieces, she wait, what's her name? She wrote a letter. I haven't read it yet, but let's see if there's some tea up in there. Hadmira Leacock. Let me pull it up. This ain't, this ain't who. Child, not a mug shot. Is this her? This a mug shot, baby. Hold on. A different picture had came up. I'm not sure if that's her, but she's from Atlanta, and that's a mug shot from Fulton County. I'm not sure if that's her though, but let me type in Love and Hip Hop. This her right here. All right, so this is her right here. I'm not sure if that's the same girl from the mug shot. But anyways, This is her, and she was supposed to be Young Jock's side piece, and she exposed him on Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. So hers gonna be the last one. We'll read hers and then we will go to bed, honey. I haven't read hers yet. What number is she again? Hold on. Oh, 25. It's a lot of these letters, honey. And for the letters that I haven't read, like I said, I did another live where I read through them. Let's get into it. All right. So she said, hi, or she says, regarding United States versus Sean, she says, my name is Dr. Hadmira Mita Leacock, and I am a media executive producer and philanthropist dedicated to creating opportunities for underrepresented voices, uplifting communities in need, and advocacy for youth empowerment. I earned my doctorate in business. Girl, I hope that wasn't your mugshot then. But anyways, maybe the girl just got the same name as her. I earned my doctorate in business, and for over 3 decades, I have worked at the intersection of entertainment, entrepreneurship, and public service. My work over the years has allowed me to bridge the gap between creative industries and community service through collaborations with artists, entrepreneurs, and civic leaders to build programs for at-risk youth, support emerging artists, and connect resources to those who need them most. I have known Mr. Sean Combs for more than 30 years. We first met during the early stages of his career, when his ambition and passion were driven by an unshakable belief in his vision. From that first encounter, I was struck by his unmatched work ethic and his ability to see possibility where others saw limitations. Over the decades, our relationship has evolved from professional respect to a genuine, enduring friendship rooted in mutual respect. For over 3 decades, I have had the privilege of witnessing Sean Combs as a father, a son, and friend. However, that has always stood out to me about Sean in his unwavering commitment to family, particularly his mother and his children. I have seen firsthand how he has gone above and beyond to provide stability, guidance, and love for his children, ensuring they grow up grounded despite the demands of his public life. Even with these career demands, his family has always been his anchor. He has always been present at pivotal moments in their lives, balancing his professional obligations with a steadfast role as a father and son. The loyalty and devotion are core parts of who he is. In my own life, Mr. Combs has been a constant source of encouragement and tangible support from the very beginning. He has consistently lifted others up by creating opportunities, often in ways the public will never see or hear about. I often share a story that perfectly captures the crossroads he influenced in my career. At the same time, I was offered a recording contract to make my own album. Child, it's 4 a.m. almost. Now I'm getting tongue-tied. I was also offered a position to work at Bad Boy. My choice was between pursuing my own shot at stardom or committing to long, demanding hours in the studio, helping Sean shape the careers of others. Most of my closest friends thought I was making a mistake when I chose the latter. But I saw something they didn't, the chance to learn directly from Sean. His vision, his discipline, and his relentless pursuit of excellence were like a masterclass you couldn't buy. Child, she got a whole book too. At that time, women in the industry were rarely given opportunities beyond roles as artists, writers, or assistants. The idea of a woman serving as an A&R executive was almost unheard of. Yet Sean trusted me with that title and the responsibility to help bring his creative vision to life. That decision forever shaped the trajectory of my career and my life. It taught me that success is not always about being the one in the spotlight. Sometimes it's about standing beside greatness, learning from it, and using that wisdom to create your own path. I saw and spoke to Sean a couple times prior to the allegations, and I genuinely began to notice a sense of love, personal growth, and maturity in him. Girl, he was trying to do a freak off the day before they arrested him. But anyway, in one of our conversations, he apologized to me for any past indifferences we may have had and thanked me for all that I had contributed to his life, career, and success. Then he said something I will never forget, that Bad Boy wasn't just his legacy, but mine too. And that we would make music magic again together one day. As flabbergasted as I was to hear those words, I welcomed them deeply, having longed for that acknowledgement and familiar connection for so many years. Because of this, I have every confidence in his capacity for growth, sincere reflection, and true redemption. I understand the seriousness of the matter before the court, but I also believe it's important to see the whole of a person. I know Mr. Combs to be a man of strength and resilience. I've watched him face challenges, both personal and professional, that would have broken many, yet he has always worked to rise above them, continuing not only to provide for his family, but also to advance his culture. His success has never dimmed his empathy or connection to the community, and his impact also extends to countless quiet acts of kindness, not always privy to the public. Your Honor, I respectfully ask that you consider the totality of Mr. Combs' life, his years of positive contributions, and the countless people whose lives have been better because of him. I offer this letter not to diminish the gravity of the proceedings, but to give a full picture of the man I have known for over 30 years. I also wish to affirm that his family and I, as his extended family, are committed to supporting his continued growth, reform, and restoration into an upstanding man the community can rely on. And we can have more magic to make. The world needs it. All right. Dr. whatever. Anyways, so that is the letters. Now, there's still so many more letters that we haven't read through. There's the real estate guy. There's the chef from season 15, Hell's Kitchen. There's Claudine De Niro, who's the ex-wife of Robert De Niro. The executive vice president of Bad Boy. The music executive of Uptown. One of his interior designers. The vice president of human resources for Bad Boy. Songwriter, the manager of Little Kim, actors, A&Rs. There's still so many more. So, if you guys want to read more of these letters, Megan Cunith posted a link so that you can read all of them on her Twitter. If I'm nice, I'll post the link in the comments. But if you guys want to look for it on your own and you want to go and read any letters that I have not read, if you go to Megan Cunith's Twitter, she uploaded a link to the Google Drive that has all of them on there. So all of the letters are on there. Now, the prison letters that I read are not on the Google Drive. This is just the family letters of support. If you guys are just tuning in, I did the beginning of this live. I read his curriculum for his program, where he has a program called Free Game with Diddy. So in this thing where it's called Free Game with Diddy, he has inmates who he teaches business courses. So in the beginning of the live, we went over like what to expect at his sentencing hearing. We went over the transcripts to his recent hearing where he was asking for acquittal. And they were basically saying like, child, all he did was record and produce amateur adult films. He wasn't really, buying no lot lizards or nothing. We also in this live, so we went over, and we also went over the support letters of the inmates. There were several of the inmates who wrote letters on behalf of what they learned, the curriculum, and the lessons that he taught. We have went over a lot in this live, and to help, hopefully you guys have been leaving timestamps. Now, a lot of times when I do a live, like I'll try to like edit out the dead space, but I don't want to mess up the timestamps. So hopefully people just click the timestamps and get to the part of the live that they want to get to. So yeah, with that being said, thank y'all for hanging out with me. Good morning to y'all. It's 4 a.m. here in California. Some of you guys, it is almost 7 a.m. for y'all. And child, y'all let me know what else y'all want me to talk about. There has been a lot of updates in the David story. So I did part 1 where I talked about everything that I had learned up until that point in the video. Since my last video on the artist David, where he had the young girl that was found deceased in his trunk, there has been a couple new revelations that came out. There has been surveillance from when she ran away from home. There has been different reports that have come out, different things that I'm going to share with you guys. Now, in the midst of the different reports that have come out, there's a lot of rumors, a lot of people making up stuff, a lot of people making AI pictures, a lot of people adding bogus stuff to the story. I'm not that type of blogger. I'm not about to just throw a whole bunch of random BS out y'all and all of that. So if you come to my video like, well, why you didn't talk about this and why you didn't talk about that? Because this probably was BS, okay? And y'all just gullible. So with that being said, I'll catch y'all in the next one. I will do a David update, but child, let your girl get some rest. Hopefully, probably by tomorrow in the afternoon, we'll go over some more stuff, and I'll pull up all of the different links for David, and we'll run through all of that. Because there has been there has been a lot of stuff, like there has been kind of a timeline that kind of pieced when she was alive to her in the trunk. There's a lot to go over, so I'll catch y'all up on all of those things later, but I can't do it right now. So I'll talk to y'all on the next one. And do y'all think it's worth it to go to the sentencing hearing? I mean, or do y'all want me to just cover it like I'm covering it now? Like, get the transcripts, read through it, boom, 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 boom. Y'all let me know. All right, bye. And y'all are so silent. For so many of y'all to be on here, y'all is real silent. Like, say hi in the chat. Say good morning. Say something. Let me know you still there. Make sure you hit the like button. And don't forget that y'all can always donate.